Welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude.
And Justin.
Today we're talking about The Leftovers. We've got season 3 just starting. And it's another leftover episode. Well, there's a lot left over after you watch it. It's a lot of questions.
There's a lot left over. You're right. I wonder if it's a metaphor, if it's a double meaning. I think it might be.
It always is.
It always is. The answer is always yes.
Always yes. So episode 301 came out recently, and we devoured that. And Justin and I have been doing a rewatch over the first 2 seasons. And yeah, I'm really excited about this final season of The Leftovers. I think they're really gonna go all out.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just mention that the title of this episode is The Book of Kjolven.
The Book of Kjolven.
Did they write a book about you, Kjolven?
Kjolven, they wrote a book about you. Oh, Kjolven. That's our Patty impression, if anyone was wondering.
Yeah. If you've seen season 2, you probably heard that.
Yeah.
But, not a lot of Patty in this episode, but it's definitely off to a crazy ass start.
It's already crazy. There's so much really to talk about. I guess let's do a quick recap over the episode, and then we can kind of talk about everything. You got a recap you want to do?
Okay, sure. So we start off with this flashback, which, I mean, if you've seen season 2, season 2 starts with a flashback. I don't know if flashback's the right word for what it is. It's not like we're going back to some characters we know or something, but it's back in time.
Yep.
I guess it's like the 1800s.
And
it's a pretty extended sequence. I recommend, if you're listening to this, you should probably watch it. But anyway,
it's better than his explanation.
Yeah, exactly. I start to feel inadequate. Anyway, basically, it's a group, small village, I guess, on the prairie somewhere. I don't know, and I guess some of them are sort of like waiting for the rapture, something like that. Climbing on the roof, waiting to be raptured, and I guess there's some notes with birds. I mean, we got to get into the birds, by the way. The birds are
really important on this show.
So significant. It's ridiculous.
It's all about the birds, man.
It's really all about the birds. I can't believe how much bird.
It's like the opposite of Twin Peaks, with the owls, where like the owls may not be what they appear or whatever, but this is all about the birds.
They're just it's one of those things that anyway. Let me get back into the before I just endlessly comment. Based on some bird messages, I guess. I mean, I'm kind of not 100% sure how to describe this.
You mean tweets?
Yeah. Let's. Oh God. The world will end on April 2nd, 1844. Sad.
Sad. Exactly. I was gonna make another joke, but you won that one. That's the best joke you can make.
I had to. Okay. So yeah, based on that and I guess stuff from the Bible. I mean, I'm editorializing a little bit because I don't really know, because it's basically silent with music. Anyway, they determine it's gonna happen on this date, and to go up on the roof, and doesn't happen, and then I guess they go back to the lab, as it were, and oh no, we were wrong. It's really this other date later. And so it'll happen then, and they get up on the roof, and it doesn't happen again, and then eventually, I mean, it's a family, the husband, a wife, and a kid, and I guess the husband and the kid give up, but the wife decides to keep going for it. This time it'll work. And I guess it starts raining like crazy. And and it still doesn't work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess at this point she's got nowhere to go, nothing left, and so she goes and sleeps on the church floor. Is that what happens? I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
100% sure. And that's kind of where we transition into
Yeah.
the present, kind of, not really though, as we'll
The
see.
recent past, the
The
recent
recent
present.
past. There you go. The end of season 2 stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a brief
So
catch up there.
there's a lot I want to say about this first part, but you just want to do the whole episode recap and then we'll
Well,
come back, or
we could get into it now and just kind of go from there. I mean, it's fine.
sure, I guess, yeah. So this whole first intro I thought was really interesting. So some similarities I noticed is that with all three, the first episode of all three seasons, the first what am I trying to say? The first sequence in the first episode of each season,
Mm-hmm.
all center around women,
Yeah.
and they all center around women in their version of the modern world, in their modern world.
Right.
They're not time traveling women,
Right.
and
Right.
and they're and they're all women who experience loss
Right.
after and a little bit shaky on this on the third one, but this episode, but I kind of wanted to unite it with who women who experience loss after the extraordinary happens, or sort of the improbable happens. Now in season
Right.
3, there's nothing really extraordinary or improbable that happens. It's
Right.
actually kind of the opposite. Like the improbable thing didn't
They're
happen, and
expecting
I'm
it to happen, but it doesn't.
yeah, versus the other two in
Where they're
season
not expecting
one,
it,
they're not expecting it
and it does
exactly,
happen.
and it does happen.
Of
Yeah,
course, we get both.
of course we get both. Yeah, and I'm curious that we're seeing the that version this time, the one where it didn't work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
even though they wanted it to work, sort of a thing. But I thought that was interesting that they all focus on women experiencing loss, but women sort of particularly just in their world trying to survive.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. This whole thing that seems to suggest the origins of the Guilty Remnant.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. The
And I
old
thought that
school
was really
version.
interesting. It seems like this whole intro is sort of a depiction of a common belief becoming an uncommon belief.
Yeah.
And you see how sort of society, but particularly this group, ostracizes people with the uncommon beliefs.
Yeah.
And then what's really interesting about that, and you see that of course with the Guilty Remnant, is that ostracization,
Woo!
ostracization,
Ostracization. Yeah. Yeah.
ostracism. I think it's ostracism. Maybe that's the
Okay.
word.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't know.
the
That's a hard one, man.
ostracizationism.
You picked a hard one.
Yeah, I didn't
Damn.
pick it. I just picked it.
Oh, okay.
But the actual act of ostracizing those people because of their uncommon beliefs actually unifies them, right? So
Right.
like you said, she had nowhere to go except for the people who shared her beliefs.
Right. Right.
And so you get this interesting thing. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this in the Lost Lowdown. Lost, we've
Yeah.
talked obviously with the commentary series. We spent a lot of time talking about beliefs and how that motivates the characters. How that's a central part of the show is really these characters operating on their beliefs, and you see that with the Leftovers.
Yeah.
That it's really this whole. It seems like Lindelof is just really interested in belief,
Oh, big
and then
time. Yeah, it's a huge
subsequent,
deal.
what actions do you take because of your beliefs, and then how are you willing to go, and then what evidence do you have to base those beliefs on, and that whole like kind of thing happens. But I thought that this whole thing was really interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and again, another basically silent sequence, no dialogue.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I would say that. I mean, the departure. I think it remains to be seen. I'm pretty. I'm kind of on the fence about what they're going to say about the departure in the end. I think it could go a number of ways, though I don't think we'll get a definitive explanation for it. That seems really unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like there's the possibility that someone floats a theory or something. I mean, I guess that's already happened to some extent. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with that first sequence, I mean, that's the departure, and so maybe it doesn't really apply because I mean, we don't really get to see much of what happens like after the departure. I mean, we see sort of the immediate
Mm-hmm.
aftermath. But in the season 2 sequence, it really seemed to me like, um, the things that happened were, it was bad luck or whatever, but I mean, it didn't seem like anything that happened to her was, I mean, they were all natural. I mean, like a cave in, a snake bite.
Yeah, so that's why I want to use the term not necessarily like a miracle or a miraculous event, but an improbable event. And
Yeah,
I think that's the what you can say because her waking up to pee in the middle of the night
yeah,
and an earthquake happens and like caves in her separates her from her group
yeah,
is improbable
right,
that those sort of events would happen like that. So it's kind of and again, from her perspective, that earthquake is it's we consider it natural, obviously a natural event, but she doesn't know the science behind it, right? So for all she knows, the bird god made the ground shake, so to her, I think from that perspective, I think it is a bit more on the miraculous side because
right.
it's unexplained. It's another unexplained event. She doesn't know why the ground shook.
Right, and she definitely thinks the bird is, I don't know, like some kind of sign or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
messenger, shall we say?
Yep. Yep.
If we want to go that far. Yeah, it's clear that it's about, she's putting an interpretation on it, and I guess another thing that it's about is, or at least part. So okay, when that sequence came on, the season 2 one, I remember the whole time I was thinking, how does this tie in? You know what I mean? What's the tie-in? And I was expecting all of season 2, like that there would be a tie-in. When the girls are running
Mm-hmm.
naked, I thought that was a tie-in. I kept, and I feel like the main tie-ins were the bird as a sign, the uh, the and the earthquake,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that it was the pond or the lake or whatever, the one that drains. I guess we
Yeah.
see it again in this new episode. He jumps in there and gets baptized and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Because the water came back.
Because the water came back. Exactly. It's been 3 years and the water came back. I don't know. Did it come back in season 2? I don't actually remember. Um,
No. No.
it
No.
never
No.
came back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess the water's back, and yeah, so like those were the main connections that I could see
Mm-hmm.
between you know what I mean. So when it came to this new sequence, again, I was like, what are the connections here? And
Sure.
I think the obvious one. Well, I shouldn't say obvious, but one that you pointed out. Uh, that's the only reason it's obvious is the guilty remnant thing, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly the general idea of believing in things and interpreting things as signs that may or may not actually be signs of
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess another thing that seems a little bit more concrete or something is those birds. I mean, he was taking birds out of a thing and like looking at messages. There were messages
Mm-hmm.
on them, and that was somehow contributing to his predictions
Yeah.
about seemingly. I mean, I don't really understand what was happening. Where were those messages coming from? What did they
Mm-hmm.
say? What the
Mm-hmm.
fuck is going on with those birds? And it really comes into a new significance at the end when we see messenger birds with the messages being thrown away and then the birds being delivered. It's like, what the fuck is happening with these
Mm-hmm.
birds?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, birds are front and center. I don't know. It's a connection. I don't know what it means. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what the point is. I guess every season premiere has to baffle me with a bird.
Yeah. Yeah. The bird bafflement.
Because yeah, I rewatching season 2, like at the beginning when she digs up the bird, it's like, what the fuck is this? It
Mm-hmm.
just comes out of nowhere, and there's no explanation. There's for
The,
so
the
long.
the thing I liked about this, though, having the season 3 flashback scene, is that it gives a little bit of context, because if this is the same area of where Miracle is,
Mm-hmm.
then presumably it's just a local legend or
Right.
cultural myth about these birds and their ability to say something about reality.
Right. Right.
So I thought that was a kind of interesting thing, that they tied it together location wise. The same that they did with the cave woman.
So I
They
guess I
tied
wasn't
that.
as clear that it was in the same location. So how, like, what makes you think it's the same location?
Oh, why do I think that?
I'm just curious. I mean, it might be.
uh,
It seems plausible, but like, I didn't really. I guess because the bird thing at the end is in Australia. It seemed to me like maybe the bird thing could be, maybe a more general thing, or could happen in other places. And I guess I never assumed. I mean, it would make sense, but I just never assumed that. So I'm just curious what the.
yeah, I don't know why I just assumed that. Why am I thinking it was
Because
in the same
in
place?
season 2 they cut from the lake that she dies next to, to the girls swimming in the lake, and so it's made fairly clear that that was the same area. She died in Miracle
Yeah.
National Park, I guess, what became Miracle National Park. But
Yeah, I
that
think it's that transition that makes me think it was the same
yeah.
location, but it's not necessarily true.
That's
Yeah,
the
I
thing,
don't.
because at the end they transition from Kevin burning the book, or he's about to burn the book, to the sky, and they use the birds, and then they're in Australia. So it seems like it's possible it could be a different. I mean, I don't know that it really matters. I mean, it seems interesting. I guess it matters if it's the same place.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't even catch they were in Australia. How did you catch that?
oh, if you just the woman's accent, and if you look in the background, you can see it's an Anglican church, and I guess because of all the setup about Australia,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems likely to me that it's Australia. Although I will admit it's not 100%. I mean, the sheep, where else do they have that many sheep?
Yeah, well, I could tell you some places, but I get your point.
So yeah, I mean, it's not 100% definitive, but I think there's at least a number of things that are consistent with it being Australia, and given the setup, it seems likely to me. I mean, that's going to be I'll throw that in as a prediction, I guess.
Yeah.
But they didn't
Um.
tell us. I mean, they didn't tell us directly. You're right about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else about this intro scene? Yeah, and the other thing, in terms of connections, is it's a little bit different from the first season, but just this idea of how beliefs, when you have unpopular beliefs, how they separate you from your group.
Yeah.
You see that with this season 3 one, and because she wasn't willing to stop her beliefs just because her family left, you know,
Right.
um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
even though
It
they
was
were
still
totally on board with it,
right.
yeah, it shows something. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how focused the stories in this show are about just beliefs, how powerful that is.
Yeah.
Because you see, like, with the ladies, the woman's family, they're all super excited about it. Yay, rapture! And it's like, okay, the
Yep.
preacher got the date wrong. Okay, let's try
Mm-hmm.
again. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yay, rapture! Then it's kind of like, listen,
Yeah.
this is stupid. We're not gonna do this anymore. And actually, it's your fault we're doing this in the first place. So it's kind of.
The second time I watched it, I wanted to say, like, do you have to wait on the roof? I mean,
Hmm.
can't you just like go to sleep, and if you get raptured, you get raptured, and if you don't, at least you're in your bed. I
No, that's
mean,
not how it works. You want to make it easy. You want to, and it's
is it?
and it's and it's about the rituals. The same way
Yeah,
all those
of
all those death
course.
cults,
Yeah,
like they don't just say, "Well, we'll get taken," or whatever. They're like, "No, we
yeah, I
have to
know.
dress up. We have to
Of
do a whole
course.
thing." I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Plus it
yeah,
looked
yeah.
plus it looked cool,
It
though, those
does.
those night shots with everybody
Yeah,
on the roof in white, and
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just like, yeah, for practical reasons. But then it's like, how committed are you? If you're not willing to stand on the roof, do you really believe it? I mean, come on,
Exactly. Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
That
Like,
ladder was big.
it
Every
was.
day. Every day you got to move that
All
ladder.
that shit, yeah, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I guess I would also say that the sudden departure in a way like helped a guilty remnant. Like part of the thing that was going on there is like nothing was happening. And so those beliefs weren't taking hold because like they were
Mm-hmm.
they were predicting things that weren't happening. And I feel like, because the guilty remnant's whole focus is the sudden departure, which happened,
Mm-hmm.
no one denies that it happened. That gives them a kind of validity that makes them maybe more appealing.
It's funny the way you just described that. It makes me wonder if that's part of why the guilty remnant is so adamant in terms of their viewpoint about forcing people to not forget that the departure happened, like because it's their claim to fame, because it's the
Right.
thing. If we're
Oh
supposed to
yeah.
believe the remnants go all the way back to this 18th century
Mm-hmm.
time or 1800s time, yeah, if you waited a couple hundred years to be proven right and then you were proven right, you're gonna shove that in everybody's face.
Right. Right.
So I
Definitely.
wonder if that's part of it. If they don't want, you know, for instance, I thought the guilty remnant started after the departure happened.
Yeah. Me too.
Um, but if it started before and they were always, trying to foretell the end times,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it would make sense that they don't want people to forget the thing that was their biggest claim to fame.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. We were right
it's
about this
interesting.
all along, and
Yeah.
you should remember that.
Yeah, we're not gonna let you forget it. Um, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because there's a lot of pent up hostility there. I think from being ostracized those centuries.
You could say that again. Yes.
I won't though. I won't.
You needn't, but you could, and it would
We
be
could.
right the second time, just like
Yeah.
it was the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting connection. I didn't really think about. I was really just thinking about how like it seemed like at the time, they were all like the ones who believed were forced to just sleep in the church and be separate from their families and stuff. Which I
Hmm.
guess is still happening with the guilty remnant, but it seems like part of the story. I mean, at least through seasons 1 and 2. I don't know where season 3 is going to go with the guilty remnant. It feels a little bit like this next scene we're going to talk about kind of kills the guilty remnant plot completely.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it does seem like the arc over up to season 2 was the guilty remnant growing and doing more and more outlandish stunts, to get people's attention, and I guess also the people fighting back,
Yeah.
against those intrusions and direct whatever confrontations.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, the thing I was talking about. So we transition into the I guess the period right after the end of season 2. We've got the guilty remnant crew that I guess they basically let in all of the like, I don't know, apocalyptic weirdos that were sitting outside of Jarden and Miracle National Park. They let them all in, and they kind of came in and trashed the place. And meanwhile, the guilty remnants, I guess, took refuge or just decided to occupy. I'm not exactly sure what happened. The visitor center, the welcome center that we saw many times in season 2, and I bet we won't be seeing many times in season 3. Um, anyway, so we pick up there with Evie and Meg, and Evie writes down, what are we waiting for? Which is a good question. I wondered what they were doing there back in season 2, and I still wonder it now. But Meg doesn't really answer. She just kind of tells this story about Siegfried and Roy playing with tigers. I guess they're Siegfried and Roy, and the tigers are the government. I'm not 100% sure what the story means and why. What they were waiting for was to get killed by the tigers. Like I don't really understand what kind of answer that was. Anyway, I'm just editorializing here. Then I guess they see like a camera come through a hole in the door or something, like spying on them or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
And then Evangeline goes outside and sees people running away, and then looks up and sees a plane headed that way, and then sees, I guess, some kind of bomb or something like that, missile or something drop right in her
Mm-hmm.
face. that's that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and then we cut to 3 years later. So that was a huge. I mean, they sort of short. It was a very short, like, let's move on from the
Mm-hmm.
stuff in
Mm-hmm.
the stuff at the end of season 2.
Yeah, yeah, I want to note that that in the beginning of in season 1 in the pilot they did a similar 3-year jump after
Oh yeah, you're right.
the departure, so they did it here
Right.
again after that bomb. Yeah, that was an interesting. Yeah, I don't really get. As Meg was telling this story, I thought I knew where it was going and what it meant, but yeah, I don't really get the point. She was saying that you have these tigers and they're all nice, and then one day they'll eat you.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I didn't really get it. I agree. I don't know why they were holed up there. The whole ending of the season was weird. I mean, that whole thing, and they get in, they let everybody in, and then they just hang out in
Hang out
the
there.
because what?
Yeah.
What did they? It seemed like their job was done, and they had nowhere to go.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was gonna say. Like, I was wondering the whole time, like going into the season, I was like, "What's the next step? You know, what's the plan?" Like,
mhm.
now you let people in. Like, now what? Is it? Was it really just like they're done and yeah, they just didn't have anything else to do at the at the
Mhm.
time. Like, it's just
You know,
weird.
this the GR is obviously a lot like the others from Lost.
Yeah, big time.
And
Yeah,
one of their biggest similarities is they have the bulk of their followers don't know why they're following the
of
leaders.
course, of course,
Uh,
of
they don't
course.
seem plugged in at all into any grand scheme. They
Yeah,
don't seem to really know the actual mythology of the group they're in and why they do the things they do. Now, one thing I thought was
yeah.
interesting on my rewatch was, why do they wear white and why do they smoke and why do they not and all that stuff. It's weird. I didn't remember this, but there's signs all over the house that they're in
Mm-hmm.
and that tell you all that information.
Yeah, although they're a little bit open to interpretation at times, in terms of like using kind of vague language. Like I remember one of them was like, "We smoke so they remember" or something like
Yeah,
that. It's
the
like,
smoking one was a little vague,
huh?
but the other ones were a little more specific, and I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
forgot I thought there was more to it, and they told us from the beginning why they're doing this, and it doesn't make any more sense than what that is, like
yeah,
yeah,
and
the
then
smoking we smoke to proclaim our health. That's the one it said.
oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and I'm like, huh,
yeah,
huh,
yeah, yeah.
like
It's weird.
we try to kill ourselves because you can only kill yourself if you have health to begin with.
Uh huh.
So we're proclaiming we have health by destroying it. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the idea.
yeah,
Kind of like that saying, like, you're alive if you feel pain or something
right,
like that.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
think you're not there yet, or maybe you're close. But at a certain point, Patty basically explains the white clothes. She doesn't really explain the
mhm.
cigarettes, but that it's just about like stripping down and simplifying and taking away distractions
Yeah.
from contemplating, the meaning of the sudden departure. Like that's what you should be doing all the time, and anything that takes your mind away from that is something you should you know get rid of, and so that was basically her explanation for why they were white. But in terms of the cigarette thing, there's a great thing from season 2 on that, which ties into the others on Lost really well. Lori writes this book that she tries to get published. That's basically about her time in the Guilty Remnant. And when she goes to the publisher's like, so there's this. He's kind of talking like an audience member in a way. It's a very Lindelof scene, and he's like, you never really explained what the deal is with the smoking. And she's like, it was never explained to me.
That's the most Lindelof thing you could ever write. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, there you go. They don't even tell the members what it's about.
How is she supposed to know? No one told her.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then Patty would be like, nobody told me. And then, it just would keep going.
They just all do it. They do it because everybody else does it.
Yeah. Yep. And why are you looking for an answer here?
Yeah. Yeah, get over it. There's no grand reason. I mean, there were the signs, and I think that's the closest we get to an explanation. And it sort of makes sense, but I don't.
Well, and the signs are probably there just to placate people who who have questions that they're going to ask. Right. Like, listen, let's just put up a sign so people stop asking why we're doing this.
Yeah, didn't you read the sign? Come on,
the sign, buddy.
But yeah, I think it's they're very much like the others. And I think a lot of the problems with the others, manifest with the Guilty Remnant. I think they had a good run in season 2, but with this scene, I really wonder how much more. It's interesting that the opening scene seems to even be about them, but maybe it's this kind of across the sea thing where they're done with the Guilty Remnant, so they kind of go back to where they started. I don't know. It could be that, because it just seems to me like it could go in maybe 2 directions. Like, one, they abandon it altogether, and the show's just about other stuff now. Like, they're done with the Guilty Remnant. The other way they could go, I feel like, is they would have to introduce a new. I mean, all the Guilty Remnant characters we knew are dead, so. You know what I mean? There's no entry point for that story to take place unless we have a new character, or they just kind of generically step in as a group, But I feel like they would have to introduce a new leader or something like that if they're actually gonna play a role in the plot going forward. So it just seemed to me like killing the 2 main Guilty Remnant characters. It just kind of. That's it. I mean, that's all there is. That's what it looks like to me. But we're done with that.
I kind of feel like we're done with it. The only caveat is the idea that Evie pulled some trick, like her dad seems to believe that she's alive, maybe, and maybe
But
that.
What about the dental records?
The dental records matched. What was that line? Are we just supposed to believe the dental records? And then they were like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Kevin said. Yeah. You're supposed to believe the dental records.
But that also seems like a Lost thing too. It seems like a season 3 Lost thing. Like, the dental records match, and then you see the person who was supposed to be dead later. You're just like, oh, you can fake dental records,
Of course, yeah.
And don't forget the government is behind all this stuff.
Yep.
But I do.
That's something I feel like I didn't appreciate the first time I watched the show. At least not fully. Like, the extent to which, because the show is focused on a small scale, it's more like Walking Dead. It's about the little people in this world. But there is some stuff. I would say even more so in season 1. But I think in season 2 there's some of this too. Of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Cults, they've added, and they go in and they bust Wayne's compound, and they hunt him down, and they don't give a shit about the Guilty Remnant being attacked or whatever, They don't care that Kevin killed Patty. There's all sorts of stuff where there's every indication that they've taken a very combative stance, I guess, as far as these cult groups go.
It's interesting. I did notice that on the rewatch too. The politics of this world, it begs to be investigated more. I think because just the whole department of sudden departure
Oh
is
yeah, that too.
really needs explaining. I mean, the whole idea of creating a new government bureaucracy like that's handing out money to people, like
Yeah.
what is the politics of this world that got approved by the government,
Mm-hmm.
by Congress? You're telling me like people actually voted to just like, oh, you just go around and just give people money because they lost someone in this like really weird occurrence? It's not like, it's not just and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I was seeing, like it's not just like their private insurance benefits. Like this is the government
It's the
saying
government. Yeah.
you're owed
Yeah.
money for your
Yeah.
loss, and
Yeah.
I would love to understand how that came to be and how people came to accept that. And there's no, Republicans aren't saying this is overspending and overreach. This is big
Right. Right.
government,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so that yeah, and the actual law enforcement angle is interesting too. Yeah, that scene where Kevin's talking to the FBI guy about
Mm-hmm.
the what's her name, the lady who got
Oh
stoned,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that whole that moment where it goes dark and the guy's like, his voice changes and he's
Yeah.
like, hey, you say the word, I can have 50 officers come down and
Yeah.
they'll kill everybody there and you won't
Yeah.
have any worries. We don't give a shit about these people.
Yeah.
Like listen, man, there's a whole thing going on you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And if you want
Yeah.
us to take care of it, we'll take care of it. And it is super surprising, but it's in the context of Kevin possibly being crazy.
Right.
So you're not sure if he's hallucinating that or not.
Right.
But no, I think it is real. And I think that it
Definitely.
does show like the contempt that they have for these groups. There's also an interesting scene, I think it's episode 6 of season 1, where Nora goes to DC for that conference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the so she goes into that lecture where the lady's impostering her. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what. What's
Impersonating.
impersonating? There has to be a word for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you listen to the
Takes her
dialogue
badge.
of the man talking in that scene, the dialogue kind of starts before they go in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But he explains the whole cult thing. He explains that whole what do they call it? The prophet dilemma or something like that. And this whole idea, he explains that after miraculous events, like the number of people who claim to be prophets increases, and you
Right.
have all these groups, and it was a really like kind of on the nose like exposition,
Yeah.
but it was good to
Yeah.
hear about kind of the backstory of all that stuff. And Brad, he talked about something else that kind of related about like what happens if you have these beliefs. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a weird one.
Oh,
they were.
prophet delusion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. It was that dreams, signs, and hearing voices from a higher power are a coping mechanism and a potentially dangerous one. That's what he said. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, and I was thinking about that in terms of Kevin. Is his
Mm-hmm.
thing a coping mechanism?
Right.
And that's the thing that I guess hasn't been answered really about, in relationship to his dad's craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did that start?
Oh, that's an interesting thing that the rewatch answered for me. Because if you had asked me, before I did the rewatch, I would have said that he went crazy before the departure.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they show very clearly that up until the sudden departure, he was relatively normal. He wasn't hearing voices. He wasn't acting in strange ways. He wasn't burning libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, all that started happening. They didn't specify exactly when, but it was after the sudden departure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a huge turning point, and it seems like it lends some validity. And I guess going forward, and in general for the show, like a big question is, are those voices real in any sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we ever going to know? Or is it just going to be, one of those things where we get to decide if we think they're real or not?
Yeah, and I mean,
Like the characters.
we'll get to it, I guess. But the whole thing with the hotel stuff, if that was real or
Yeah.
not, I think that connects to what the dad is going through.
100%. Yes, it does.
Trying to
Totally
think.
agree.
So back to Evie in this scene with the drone and the missile. One, I thought it was weird how they drilled the camera in the wall at eye level so everyone could see the camera.
Yeah,
Every other time you see this on TV,
it's hidden.
it's hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I love that once they realized people were in there, and I guess there were no like innocent civilians or something.
Mm-hmm.
They all just run away.
Yep.
Like they're just like they weren't prepared for that missile that's come so fast because it was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, yes, they're here. Target to go. Okay, now run away.
Yeah. Get GTFO, everybody.
So
Yeah.
the only way I think Evie could be alive is if the missile, obviously it looks like it's going directly at her,
Yeah.
but is if
You see it in her
actually
glasses.
it actually hits behind her and kind
Right.
of pulls her away from the
A little
explosion.
like a Jin kind of thing.
Yeah.
She gets like blown into the woods or something and runs away and she's gonna come back. I took when John said that thing, I took that as just kind of desperation and like a coping mechanism and like it totally could just be that. But on this show, I have to admit, it's not. It's because they totally tricked me in season 2.
Yeah, then when John literally says she did it before, she did, and it's like, are we supposed to take that as evidence that she did it, or is she telling us it can't happen again? Can lightning strike twice?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. I like my if I had to lay money on it or whatever, to put a stake in the ground, I feel like she's dead. That's what it feels like to me. But again, I thought she was departed in season 2, so it's totally wrong about that. So yeah, who knows? If those characters aren't dead, I mean, if Evie's alive or something, then I guess that would be a way for the Guilty Remnant to remain relevant.
I do think they're dead.
It seems likely to me.
It seems like they can move on past the Guilty Remnant. I don't know what they would really serve at this point. I feel like the show is leading up towards some big other thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we've kind of dealt with the Guilty Remnant. It's like I don't even know what they got out of what they were doing. I gotta finish my rewatch and get back to the end of season 2. But yeah, they once they got everybody in, I mean they destroyed the town, but the town was rebuilt and nobody seemed to care anymore.
Right.
It's not like they destroyed it forever. That seemed like a good mission, or a goal, right. I should say. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Like it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure what the mission was. I mean, maybe the point was just like, Jarden was supposed to be this place that no one had departed from, and so they were untouched by the sudden departure. And I don't know. Maybe the point was like, no, you two shall be.
They want to ruin their fun.
Yeah, they want to ruin everybody's fun. You gotta love that about them. Mm-hmm. They really don't ever do anything fun, ever. But yeah, I was just gonna say, I did notice there's a brief thing in season 2 where you see that like now that the departure's happened, they sell departure insurance, but certainly before the departure there was no private departure insurance.
Yeah.
So I think that means that it's a government program that I guess like they considered it large scale enough, like a natural disaster relief kind of justification. I would assume. That's kind of what they're thinking.
Yeah.
About like why they should pay. people who lost someone. But yeah, then they have to, the other thing I noticed is how the Perfect Strangers thing is like mentioned and shown like pretty prominently in season
really
1.
Prominently, yep.
And how that was a huge clue that I did not understand.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, because even they the first time you see it, they were like, somebody's like, yeah, the whole cast of Perfect Strangers departed, and they're like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's your first clue.
Exactly. Yeah, and that whole thing where they confront him and he fakes his departure, it's like and that's like, really early on in season 2, and it's like, damn it. I should have guessed that's what that meant,
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, you got fucking Ghost Patty showing up, and she's I don't know if maybe she's done. But if we ever see her again, I mean, I'd really like an explanation as to why she was lying so much about everything. Because, like, I really was blown away watching her, like, oh, Kevin, they were departed. I saw it happen. What?
Yeah. I remember trying to be very skeptical of her back then.
You're so full of shit.
And when she was like, when she was about, finding the phone and trying to prove that she knew where it was, and
and the phone gave validity to what she was saying, because it was like, oh, well, she was right about the phone, so.
Yep.
But then it's like she has an agenda, and I think that's the thing that's kind of scary. I mean, even if she's in Kevin's head, it's sort of like it's disturbing what her agenda is. And I think another question about that, and I think going forward, they've got to address this on some level. Those people, so Patty, the people Kevin's dad sees, the people in the hotel, are they really the people? I mean, I guess, like, are they real is one question. A second question is, are they really the people? You know what I mean? Does it make sense? Like,
are they the people is a weird question.
Are they the people? Is it really Patty? Is it really Virgil? Is it really Mary? All the people he sees. Is it really Holy Wayne? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, all of that, all the people we see, you know what I mean? Are they really those people? Or are they kind of Avatar, so like they could exist but not be those people. They could be some kind of other figure, like that thing,
wormhole aliens.
Yeah, perfect. Like Deep Space Nine. I was gonna say Battlestar Galactica. It's all Ron Moore.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, that whole idea of like creatures taking the form of people who are familiar to the people they want to deliver messages to, that seems. Oh, and that's in Lost too, really. So. Yeah,
but for what?
For what? I have no idea. Oh man, I mean that's a killer. That question.
What did they get out of it? For what?
For what? I know. I have no idea. I mean,
why?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I think it's a question about the direction of the show. Like, what is the point? You know what I mean? Where is this going? I mean, I really don't know.
I mean, listen. I mean, we're not going to get to a point where there's like an entity or entities that are behind the departure.
You don't think someone wants to leave Australia or something and.
Someone's trapped on an island that is Australia.
Yes. And they can't leave, so.
And they can't leave. Yeah, they need some birds to go help them.
They send the birds. And...
You send the birds. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we're gonna get to that place. I don't imagine there being actual entities that are taking the forms of these people.
You think it's the people? It's either the people for real or it's all in their heads.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be both.
A little of
both. I think some of that Patty. I think that Patty stuff has to be in Kevin's head, right? Doesn't it?
Does it?
Does it? Yeah, because I feel like her point of view was invalidated, right? I mean, it just seemed like where we got at the end of that story, it didn't seem like she was telling the truth. It didn't seem like she had any real power. It didn't seem like she was actually really his nemesis or whatever.
Yeah,
And
no, it
really,
seemed to me like she was lying because she was his
yeah.
adversary and she didn't want him to come do battle.
Well, but they didn't really do battle.
Yeah, they did. I mean, he
I
pushed
mean,
her
he
down a
shot
well
her. He
and he
shot
shot
her
her.
fairly easily, and he pushed her down
Yeah.
the. And then she was a little helpless little girl,
Yeah.
which was kind of a defense mechanism, but it didn't really
Yeah.
work. That's not battle.
It's battle.
I mean, I think she was lying about,
Metaphorical battle.
the battling was either wrong or
And the
yeah,
battling was really
exaggerated or
that was
something.
Virgil's thing, but I guess she seized on it
Yeah.
as an
Well, but
idea.
isn't she the one who was like, you have a great, powerful, well, I guess she said either a protector or an adversary or something, because the whole idea of like the earthquake happening.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So she
Powerful
suggested that there was
adversary.
something.
No, I thought that was Virgil.
Oh, did he say that too? I thought.
I thought he's the one who was like, you must have a powerful adversary
Oh, you're right.
because she created an earthquake to stop you from dying, so that you wouldn't go do battle with her. I think that was the insinuation.
That's right. That was the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that was wrong.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really.
Like, I agree that it could totally be
tough to
wrong.
tell.
It's
It's
just
tough to tell.
I mean, it's in that Lindelof zone.
So here's the thing, and we have to talk about this, the whole Book of Kevin thing, and the way they lay it out was fairly convincing or interesting. The idea that he had these basically 3 miracles happen.
Right.
What was the first one?
First miracle?
The first one was the earthquake, right?
Oh,
It was
yeah,
the earthquake,
lake.
then he took the poison,
Yeah.
and then he got shot.
Yeah.
Um,
right, yeah, that was it. Yeah.
I thought that scene was pretty interesting because they were just basically like, hey, this is what happened to you, and we think that's miraculous, and therefore we're going to write about it. And that's how you start a religion.
Definitely. 100%.
I thought that was really interesting, of just very practically, and you really can't blame them. I mean, it wasn't one miraculous thing that happened to him. It was 3. I mean, 3 times, it can't be a coincidence, So that's the minimum number of events you would need to like say, well, I think we got a pattern here, guys.
Seems like a pattern, yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting in a way, because I was trying to see what they were telling us about the state of these characters now, 3 years later, and I thought it was, they're all happy now. They're kind of over their problems mostly. But then you find out that all those guys are on this. They doubled down on the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
And now they're all on the same page that something's up with Kevin.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy place to take the story. That like a large group of main characters are like, believe that he's got some kind of divine purpose.
And it's interesting too, from Matt's perspective, being a preacher and stuff. I mean, I'd love to hear him talk about blasphemy and like, the idea that he's potentially worshiping other supernatural people. Like, how does he put this in context? Is it just he's just living in another time, like the time of Jesus, and now's the time of Kevin, and
I guess that's how he sees it. Yeah, but it's sort of like how would you know? But he does seem like the kind of character who just I mean, it's kind of like that whole thing with Mary waking up, like he gave that speech about like, she woke up, so I know that this place is special and
the day he brought her there, she woke up. I mean, what else do you want?
Yeah, and it's like, okay. I mean, I'm not saying I don't get it. I'm not saying it's totally ridiculous. I'm just saying, like, to be fair though, you don't really know. Like it's there's still some room for doubt there.
Well, what is knowing?
I know, right? Exactly.
I mean, gravity could just stop working, right? As we expected. It
True.
just we
True. Now
just
I'll tell you, yeah, now that's a good example. So like the effects of gravity, there's something that you can observe all the time in a lot of different situations. Let's say that let's say they brought, I don't know, 1,000 coma patients
mm-hmm.
to Jordan, and they all fucking woke up. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know what?
Mm-hmm.
That's got some. But one, if it happens once, it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of like, I mean, like you're saying about Kevin's miracles, sort of like any one of them, it would be sort of like, when you get
Mm-hmm.
three, it starts to seem a little more like a pattern,
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, I do feel like we're supposed to think it could be true, but on the other hand, I'm not 100% sure it is about that place,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I feel like Australia is going to figure largely.
Mm-hmm. I
And
think there's going to be multiple special places. I think that's
are
just
we
going to be
going
a
in that
thing.
direction? Kind of like the Lost thing?
There's just
Many
multiple special
places.
places. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense. But I guess it's not only Jordan,
Yeah.
I would say. If it is one of the special places, it's not the only one.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you want to go to the next bit of the episode here?
Sure. So the next bit, we cut to 3 years later, which is like,
It's like a standard thing on the show.
Yeah, although it was also like kind of jarring because I'm sort of you get that scene right following from season 2, and I'm kind of expecting immediate aftermath kind of stuff, but cutting to 3 years later allows them to kind of bypass. Homeland did this recently at the end of the season. That whole thing of just like if you cut to a certain amount of time later, you don't have to deal with certain details,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of fast forward certain aspects. And I guess if you're ending a show in 8 episodes, it's helpful to kind of cut
Yeah.
to certain things. So anyway, we pick up 3 years later. Looks like Kevin's the chief of police. Nobody's surprised. That's like a foregone conclusion. Looks like Tommy's deputy. It's open to the public. They don't have wristbands. There's some exposition here, obviously.
Which I'm like, why? Why I didn't even like that they had wristbands the first time. I didn't even like that. I didn't even believe the whole idea the first time that you would set up this weird, like the government gets to decide who gets to come into a town. That was already weird.
Yeah.
And now they're just like, nope, we don't have it anymore. It's like, but why? What? Huh?
Yeah. I don't know. The guilty remnant thing, the people coming in, they were just like, maybe it's not so bad. Whatever. I don't know.
I mean, after the entire town was destroyed, and now they just let anyone in.
Yeah, now they think it's cool. It makes no sense to me, but seemingly that's what they've decided. Open is the right policy. They don't have a visitor center anymore, so just
because it's a crater. It's a crater in the ground now.
It is, yeah, very, very Swan Station-esque, that whole thing. They're done with it. They blew it up, so it's over.
It's done.
We're not going back there. Yeah, so then we just kind of see him going through the town. He goes through the middle of the town. There's some people with the Gary Busey statue, or not statue, inflatable thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds a flyer with 14 days to go until the 14th. I guess it's the 7th anniversary, and we all know 7 is the most important number in the Bible. It's all about 7.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happens in 7s. It's like, really? What about, there's a few other ones, I think. But anyway, 777. So, then he, I guess he goes, he goes over to the church. He finds Matt preaching about maybe nothing's gonna happen, but maybe it will, and if it does, it'll be here. Um,
Because, hey, my wife woke up the night I brought her here, and they
yeah,
said she never would. And,
yep,
hey, guess what? We had a kid, even
yep.
though they said she never
Of
could.
course, very lost that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exactly. Like, see, these things happen, therefore these other
Mm-hmm.
things might happen. It's like,
This is
why?
evidence for this other thing that has
Yeah,
nothing to do with it, maybe.
exactly. Maybe. Yeah, I know. It was so like it was a very Lindelof kind of
I
thing.
mean, it just, this whole show really is about how futile it is to be human and to exist with our consciousness that we have and to do anything about it, you know? I mean, that's really what it is. It's just, hey, guess what? You're conscious. Now do something.
Yeah.
You know, you can create an action, you know, go do it. What action do you create? Well, what are your beliefs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because what we're talking about is just how do you know anything? And the answer is you can't know most things. And so you just put in placeholder information. You know, you grab some evidence that might not even be the evidence for the thing you're trying to prove. It could have nothing to do with it, but it's evidence you have at your disposal, so you use it, and then you have that working theory, and you go, you know,
Yeah.
you go along with it until it either backfires or it proves itself useful,
Right.
you know. And so it's interesting to just, it's weird. It just there's it's interesting to watch a show and see the theme so obviously played out. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't ruin it, you know, or anything. But it's just weird. I don't watch Game of Thrones and go, you know what this is? This whole
Right. The
show
theme's
is
really
about
obvious.
this one idea, you
Yeah.
know, like, yeah, it's just really weird to have that thing just sit there and you just watch these characters just be illustrations of the theme, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like that puts me in a better position with this show than I was with Lost because I think it took me years
Mm-hmm.
to realize that those themes were a central focus in Lost as well. And when you don't know that, and I think this gets back to the hashtag asshole thing. When you don't know that and you're not really thinking about it that way, the storytelling can be very frustrating. Because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't deliver like a normal story does,
Yep.
that's about things that happen definitively.
Yep.
As opposed to it's about things that happen, it's questionable what exactly happened and it's questionable what it means, and
Yeah.
a lot of it is just about characters interpreting things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really the focus more so than like what actually happened.
Yeah, yeah, because it doesn't matter what actually happened. We may not be able to figure out what actually happened.
Yeah,
You know, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what the characters believe
yeah,
happened.
yeah, that's
And what
what
they're
the
gonna
focus.
do about it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so then we get a little follow-up scene where Kevin goes in and he sees Michael like working on a laptop
Mm-hmm.
that he closes really quickly um,
Porn.
at porn, and I guess he's insinuating that they were handing out these flyers that you know maybe something's coming on the 14th. Do we get an answer if they actually
You know,
were? Because Matt denies it.
yeah, I was trying to figure that out too. If I felt like we got back to that, what was on the computer, and
Oh,
I
do
don't
we?
remember what it is.
Okay, okay.
I think it is it the Book of Kevin?
Right. So, I mean, in the end, it turns out that
Oh, the book's handwritten. Never mind, the book's handwritten.
yeah. So I'm a little confused about what he was actually doing on the laptop because the book is right there next to the laptop. You can see it in that scene. It's Kevin even sets his sunglasses on it, and doesn't realize.
Oh man, that's classic. Oh, Kelvin,
Oh, Kevin.
you got your glasses on the book, Kelvin.
It's a book about you, Kevin.
Kelvin, it's your book.
But yeah, like that's the reveal. Like that's what they're hiding. But I'm not 100% like maybe they were doing the flyers. I feel like it wasn't 100% clear. I think they were.
Is that
But
really supposed to be Kevin's book,
I think
or
it
is it
is.
just?
Is it not?
I mean, listen,
Doesn't it look like the one they show later?
it looks like the one they show later, but wouldn't Matt have that in like a special place? And
Well,
is it Matt the one who's writing it?
no, I think Michael's writing it.
Oh, Michael's writing it.
I could be wrong, but I think Michael's writing it. Yeah.
But I thought Matt had it later.
Uh,
Or does he just go get it?
well, I think he goes and gets it.
Okay, I don't know. Okay,
I mean, Michael's there when it happens. I think he goes and gets it.
it just seems like it's a binder. You know,
Right.
They might have other binders, but
True.
yeah, it's Occam's razor, I guess.
It seems like that's what it is. On a rewatch. I mean, at the very least, like that's the thing they're hiding, really, more so than the flyers.
Yeah.
And I guess Kevin basically asks him to tone it down in terms of getting people to expect things to happen.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to talk
14th.
about is in terms of the state of the character's worldview now is so they're not like, hey, miracles are real and supernatural is always happening, like on the surface.
Yeah.
So Kevin's like, hey, tone it down. So it seems like the town doesn't necessarily have that miracle fever we saw in season 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
It seems like it's changed.
Now I'm confused why people are still coming to the town. Especially after the like riot, destruction, Mad Max Thunderdome shit that happened.
Right, yeah.
Like that's a little weird that and I don't know if they're trying to suggest people are coming to town because the anniversary's coming up. But
I think so. I think that's at least part of it.
But I'm trying to figure out,
like they're getting more people, but I think they get people anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to. So what has changed then? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is has anything that happened at the end of season 2 changed people's mind about their relationship to Jordan and Miracle and the departure, or are people just pretty much on the same page?
I don't know, honestly. It's not clear from the episode to me. It seems like they're still coming, but it also seems like they're still coming, but they don't view it as being as special as they used to. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
The one thing that really stood out, having done a rewatch, which by the way, my rewatch isn't finished. I'm in the middle of season 2. Is that when you start with Matt in season 1, part of his story is like his church what's the word, the people who show up, audience, I don't know, his followers,
the members.
Yeah, the members is sort of declining. Like
congregation.
His congregation is declining. Like he's preaching to fewer and fewer people.
Mm-hmm.
He's happy to just get someone to like show up and ask for a baptism.
I love that. I even had a baptism today. Yeah, you got lucky. You got lucky, man.
Yeah, he oversold that.
You got lucky, and he didn't even charge the guy, right?
No, it's like it's fine.
Yeah, I do it for the fun, not the money.
Yeah. It was clear, like, I need this. Like, this is more for me than you.
Yeah, exactly. I got something to tell my wife. You just gave me much more than money.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, it's, in terms of the overall arc, like, it's clear that the progression from there to this, where he's got, like, a packed house and he's got people outside the church, listening to his sermon. And so, like, on that level, it seems like there's been sort of an increased, level of belief.
I was just going to say, it could be that, because I think, in season 2, when Matt comes to the church, he's like a guest preacher or guest speaker or whatever.
Yeah.
What if those other people just died in the chaos of last season and like no one is left but Matt? But I mean that doesn't explain why it's popular. But that's a question. That's an open question. Like why? And it's weird because the point seems to be that Matt should be preaching, a toned down version of all this stuff, right? So it's not like he's popular because he's doubling down on it. So yeah, it's weird. They're literally giving us information about this, but it's hard to parse
Yeah.
what it really means. Because on the one hand, Matt thinks that Kevin is worthy of a book.
Yeah. Divinely inspired or something.
Yet
Yeah.
he's sort of preaching a toned down expect. Is it just the expectations Kevin had? Maybe that's the only problem he had. Because I don't know. The departure did happen, so they're not. That didn't lessen, right? It's just the idea that it could happen again. So maybe that's what he's saying. Just like,
Yeah.
don't get people's hopes up that it'll happen again.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
It seems like the whole like waiting for the 7th anniversary is going to be a big thing for this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we can talk about that more later because the ending sort of seems like it says something about where that's going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're definitely playing it down in a weird place, which I guess maybe is just a leftovers thing. But yeah, it's kind of a don't expect too much. He's not preaching like crazy stuff, and he's not preaching Kevin either. But he privately believes it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the appeal for the crowd is or where they really stand. Maybe later in the season, maybe in the next episode or something. Like once it's less about just catching up with the characters, like maybe we'll get a little better sense of how the the general people showing up, the pilgrims and the townspeople feel about Jarden now.
Yeah.
Compared to last season.
Well, one of the big things I think they were trying to set up for this season is that the characters are, or at least in terms of their jobs, they're doing well. So like you said, Matt's doing well in his congregation. Kevin's chief of police.
Yeah.
You've got Lori and what's his name? John doing their whole thing. Yeah, which that's going well for them. And Nora's back at work. So you've got we're starting. So unlike season 1, in season 2 everyone was kind of in a bad place.
Yeah.
But definitely in season 1, like they're starting off in a good place.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. So obviously it's gonna all get torn down by the end of the season.
Clearly, yeah. I mean, there's hints that like everything isn't as good as it seems to be.
No, definitely not everything. Not everything, yeah.
But I do overall the tone is definitely more positive.
But they're all sort of on the surface adjusted from the events of last season.
Definitely. That's a clear theme for the episode.
Yeah,
I would say.
Was there anything else in this section? Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, so you want to go to the next bit here?
Yeah.
So we have a scene at the police station. Kevin giving a little speech about the pilgrims coming in on the 14th, and they're approved for overtime. And then Nora comes in and says, come to me for departure stuff. It's mostly just kind of a functional scene until I guess Dean shows up from season 1. I didn't see that coming. And, rewatching, I was confused again about Dean. I remember not being 100% clear because they clearly present the idea that Dean is in Kevin's head. And the idea that, no, he's really real.
Yeah.
And yet the scenes that prove he's real are they never quite went far enough, for me at least, to be 100% sure that he really was there, that other people really did see him, and he's not just in Kevin's head.
See, I got actually at the opposite. When I rewatched season 1, I thought they proved fairly quickly he was real.
Which part proved it?
So I was going through all the beats of this thing. So the first thing is Kevin, so it kind of starts with the, whether he's real or not, sort of starts when Kevin is talking to a psychiatrist, right?
Yeah.
And so Kevin says he saw him. Then the psychiatrist says, well, Kevin, you're the only one who really saw him. So that's begging the question, is it really in Kevin's head? Then later, Dennis repeats, you're the only one who saw him. So it's kind of another peg on that one.
Yeah.
Then the mayor suggests that Kevin was out there shooting dogs.
Right.
Which would suggest Dean's not the one doing it,
right?
Because he's not real. And then then the truck found in Kevin's driveway was like, oh, what's that?
Yeah, that's a weird
now
one.
Of course Dean says, oh, I'm done with it. And then later Kevin's driving his truck, and it's the weirdest thing.
He just takes it.
If a police officer in town just it's just weird. This crazy guy's running around town, and you just take his truck. You don't know what crimes that truck might have been linked to.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, So the first one that really proves it, I think, is when the daughter, when she sees Dean, she actually talks to him, and that's when they take the beer. And then later, Lori, when she's out in the woods with the guilty remnant searching for, I keep forgetting her name, Dottie. I don't know what her name is. The lady got stoned. Dean is out there, so they talk to each other, without Kevin around. So that's real proof, I think. And then later, there's a police officer who talks to Dean. Kevin was around in that one though.
Right.
But I thought I was surprised because from my memory I was like, oh yeah, they never proved it either way or something, or it was very ambiguous by the end, but. I thought they fairly quickly were like, yeah, no. I mean, by fairly quick, I mean like 2 episodes, I think. 2 or 3 episodes. Yeah. It's like, no, here's people talking to him without Kevin, so he seems real.
So I don't remember the scene where he speaks to Lori. There's a scene with the 2 of them?
Yeah, only? So remember, let me think. Lori is out with the guilty remnant, and I think... Yeah, a dog comes by, and then like Dean is chasing the dog, and I think shoots the dog. Or maybe I think it's 2 dogs actually. He talks to her right after he shoots the dog, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that seems pretty.
And then and then like the next scene when the police are out there with the body, Kevin's there talking to Dean, and then there's some like cop comes by and says something to Dean, and Dean responds.
That was a weird one though. Like I was waiting for like an extended scene where someone talked to him without Kevin's presence or without Kevin's direct sort of proximity. And it felt to me like they never quite went, but I agree that those scenes make it pretty clear that he was there, and this episode proves, I think, once and for all, if there's any doubt left, that he was 100% real.
I think this scene is proving what the X factor was with Dean back then, which was that Dean is crazy.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, that's the thing I thought as I was going through season 1. Like, well, if he's real, this guy's crazy. This guy's totally crazy.
And that's what it was. It was like, oh, wow, this guy can't be real because he's so crazy. He must be in Kevin's head. It's like, no, he's actually crazy.
Just totally
and
crazy.
Kevin's the one that's, well, he's crazy too, but in a different way.
It's a very different way, yeah.
Yeah,
so Dean presents this, like, conspiracy theory about dogs taking human form and infiltrating the government. And he's got this peanut butter sandwich as proof, and he tries to...
Which I have to tell you, if there's shape-shifting dogs later in this season, it's gonna be the best show ever, I swear. I don't put it past him to be like, yeah, dogs can shapeshift, man. The fucking departure happened. Like anything, like that just opened up Pandora's. Anything can happen now. So
I did note that later on, when Dean shows back up and Tommy shoots him. When they're going to the crime scene later, a dog comes and grabs the sandwich.
Gets a sandwich. I noticed that too. I thought that was a hilarious subtle joke.
Yeah.
That the dog came by just to get the sandwich, and it did seem to prove a point.
It did, and the other thing about that is it means you can't really test the sandwich anymore. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, the sandwich is gone.
To be
Yeah.
sure, you know, like, of course, I really don't think there's going to be shape-shifting dogs,
Hmm.
but the fact that I can't rule it out
Yeah, and
definitely.
I think that's the joke from Damon. You know, is
Yes,
let's see if we can make the audience think that there's shape shifting dogs on this show.
absolutely. It's
And
kind of
the
like Juliet's thing of like, why do you build the runway for the
Yeah,
aliens?
exactly. Let's give them the gift of letting them be that delusional about what's possible here.
Yeah. Because he has gone pretty far. It's sort of like,
Hmm.
is shape-shifting dogs that much crazier than what you've done? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure that it
He's
is.
got a dog thing. He's got this thing about dogs.
Yeah, definitely. The dog,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah. There's a dog thing.
there's dogs and there's birds on this show.
Birds, yeah. Yeah, birds are a big deal too. I don't know why, but yeah, I think the point is really just that Dean's crazy.
Hmm.
And it's kind of just to close out that it's, you know, it's this kind of final season. Let's you know, tie up that loose end.
You know
Kind
what's
of a thing.
interesting? I was just saying you know, birds and dogs are the two animals on this show. And I was thinking of the term bird dog. So I was like, what
Mhm.
does that actually mean? So I looked up the term bird dog,
Mhm.
and it's weird. The verb form means search out or pursue with dogged determination.
Oh,
That seems really apropos for this show.
wow.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That is weird. I didn't realize that was like a term.
Yeah, I knew bird dog in terms of like a
Bird
dog
dogging.
trained to hunt birds,
Right.
but I didn't know the verb version.
Oh, that's the idea. Like a bird dog would do.
Yeah, like a bird dog would
Of
do.
course. I'm a bird dog.
Yep.
Oh man. God, that's crazy.
An informal version is a person whose job involves searching, especially a talent scout for a sports team.
Oh,
That's
okay.
interesting. The idea of searching, the idea of pursuing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's what these characters are doing.
It is.
Weird.
I'm surprised how well that fits. That's really strange. If you just search bird dog, it shouldn't come up with something that specific.
You heard it here first, folks. The symbolic bird and dog combined to be bird dog, which is connects to the theme of the show. That's how good we are at podcasting, man. We make connections where no one else would.
Yeah, exactly. I bet there's no other podcast talking about bird dogs.
No other podcast is talking about bird dogs.
So ridiculous. All right, so you ready for the next scene? Do you have any more about this? We're gonna come back to him, obviously.
Yep.
All right, so in the next scene, we go over to I don't know. Is this Isaac's house or is this? I don't really. Did they rebuild it? Is it a different house? I'm not really sure what happened. Anyway, the point is, I guess John is now doing these palm readings that we opened up with at the beginning of season 2, and you know it was a whole thing. John goes to him and gets his palm read, and then he says something bad's gonna happen to you, and then he burns his house down and you know runs him out of town basically, which was pretty crazy. Beginning of season 2 is awesome, I have to say. I recommend it to anyone who you know hasn't seen it in a while. It blew me away again when I watched it. Anyway, now he's doing the readings. He's got this guy there who wants to know, I guess, why his dad killed himself. And
on his birthday.
And he's telling him stuff, and he seems to be convincing him, and it's like, what the fuck is this? But then, of course, Kevin goes upstairs, and we find out that Lori's up there, like, looking up shit on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's so David Lindelof. Like, yeah, the psychic reading is looking up things on Facebook. Like,
she's got his file. I mean, it goes back to Lost, man. You know, listen. We can present like we have mystical powers, but in reality, we have a computer with the internet. Like,
that's it.
That's what it is. And maybe a printer so he can
Yep.
print out a file on you.
Yep. Exactly. So she walks him through this whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then and then John comes upstairs after the session's over, and I guess we learn John and Laurie are together now.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of do a Juliet Sawyer thing with them, where it's like 3 years later they're together, boom, done.
Yep.
So that's revealed. I guess they're even married. They kind of say that later.
Mm-hmm.
And also, John shreds the money that he was paid for the palm reading.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess like I get the idea of like I don't want to profit from this.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to me like
Yep.
shredding the money, is that
Yep.
really?
Versus donating it.
Yeah.
Versus. Yeah, and I thought there was actually something very interesting about shredding the money in terms of removing the currency from circulation.
Yes.
Like over time, there's just going to be less money of,
Yeah, is that going to increase the value of the dollar? I mean, is this currency manipulation?
It is on a small scale. I mean, I guess it's micro manipulation, but I just thought that was an interesting, like, sort of, not that I think he's taking a political stance, but
Right.
it seemed like an interesting political stance to just be, I'm just going to stop having money circulate, and any money that comes my way gets destroyed, and no one will ever really know that there's just less money. But I thought it was, really there to show that the dedication to the idea of not profiting from it. Because I said the same thing. Like, come on, you could like donate that to charity, but even that is like maybe he's like could be tempted to not ever do it or something like that. But I thought this whole thing, my mouth was like on the floor. My jaw was like wide open when I saw John doing the handprints.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, that's a huge 180.
And I love the whole thing when he blow dries it, which is completely unnecessary.
I love that. Yeah.
And
you gotta blow dry it or it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I thought it goes to where Laurie says about, which is a great line, where if it's not harsh, they don't believe it. And
right.
I think that the whole blow drying is part of the ritual, right? Like, you need to have these steps involved. It can't be too simple.
Where it seems like it's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, because
happening.
How it dries actually matters. You know what I mean? And how much heat I put on it for how long is going to affect, whatever.
The reading.
But so I thought this whole scene was just very, very Lost, very Lindelof. Just here's your characters in a completely different situation. You have no idea why they're doing this. But I guess the idea is they realize that people need this outlet. And it goes back to what Wayne was doing with the hugs, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I guess it's clear Wayne was a con man and not special, unless I'm forgetting something in season 1. And that, because I was just rewatching season 1, so that whole thing where the congressman comes and they have the whole charade, and I'm going to give you the hug, and he feels great afterwards.
Yeah.
And it seems like it works. For him, and everything's great. But it, just again, this idea that that's actually a benefit to people, even if you're conning them. The con can work,
right,
and can be of use. So it's worth doing.
It's the kind of thing where it's like at a certain point, it's like the placebo effect or something. It's like if it works, then. In what sense is it fake? I mean, it's it starts to get a little harder to define.
Yeah, the results are real. Yeah, exactly.
So,
if it has real results, then you can measure its validity.
Then who are you to say it's not a real thing? I mean,
Now the question is the morality of it.
True.
But the validity of it, it's definitely valid. It's like, hey, this works. It
helps people.
We have proven it helps people.
Yeah.
It does. It doesn't just like help them for a minute, or a day or a week. It seems to help them for good. So it's worth doing. Oh man, I wanted to mention something. Oh, that's what I wanted to say real quick. Going back to Matt, really far back. I just dawned on
Oh
me. I
yeah,
forgot to
sure,
say
sure.
this. But I was just thinking how it's weird that Matt didn't actually get caught up with the guilty remnant. Because if the departure was like a miracle from the creator or something, you think
Mm-hmm.
Matt would be on their page
Right.
about this is something important that we shouldn't just gloss over.
Yeah.
Where where we find Matt in season one is he's he has this campaign about saying it wasn't really the rapture, or that the people who were taken weren't
Yes.
all good people,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is
So
really
therefore it
interesting.
wasn't the rapture. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so I thought that was an interesting thing, that he staked out that claim, that
Yeah.
territory, that argument,
Yeah.
versus being like on the guilty remnant side of going, no, it
Right.
did actually happen. Whether good people were taken, bad people were taken or not, like
Yeah.
this thing actually did happen and it is real.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, he's a mixed bag. He's all over the place.
You could say that again. Yeah,
So I
I
was thinking
agree.
about what he thinks with his wife and all that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a lot going on. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. He has his own show in a way.
yeah, he does.
And I assume this season we'll get an episode with him like we did the last two seasons,
Mhm.
and his episodes are really like roller coaster rides.
Well, and it goes. He has that episode with the birds too, right? Where he sees the bird on the casino table. He thinks he needs to
Oh,
play.
you're right. That was a bird too. God
That was a
damn it, the
bird. And when he
birds.
goes, there's a scene where he's driving, and there's like a stoplight, and there's a bird on the stoplight.
Yeah.
So he has birds throughout that whole episode, that lead
Yeah.
that he follows as signs to do certain things. I
Right.
love, by the way, I love that episode. I think it's episode 5 maybe or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I love that when he wins the money, the douchebag guy who beats him up tries to
Yeah.
take it, but Matt actually takes it back.
Yeah.
And then Matt gets into the car accident, and the money
Yeah.
gets left in the car. He wakes up three
Yeah.
days later, and the money's still
Still there.
there.
Yeah.
Every time we see scenes like this where a character wins a bunch of money that in the long run won't really matter,
Right.
and they get mugged or something. Oh no, they took the money. Oh
Mm-hmm.
no. But
Yeah.
I just love that's not how the story went. That he fucking
No.
took it back and he had it, and he just got to the bank too late. But
Yep.
I like that he actually kept the money he won miraculously.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it didn't just disappear the same speed at which it came to him.
Right. 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 Yeah. It's that's why I say roller coaster ride, because you really think it's going down that road, and then it's like, oh my god, no, he actually got away with the money. He's gonna be all right. And then it's like, oh no, he got hit with the rock. Oh no, what happened to the money? Where is it? Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
it's still in the car. He can still make it. Oh, it's the last second at the bank. And then he's like,
Yeah.
you're 3 days late.
It's 3 days later. Great. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's such a
Mhm. It's very lost. It's like
yeah.
it's kind it's a cousin to the that flashback flash forward thing with Jin and the going to Sun's delivery.
Yes.
It's very similar to that, where at the end you realize that the sort of events were separated by time and you didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you're right. It is a lot like that. And it also reminds me of the thing from the beginning of that episode, which is such a Lindelof thing that they like to do, where, in church he calls for like a kind of a prayer or whatever for this girl who's in a coma, and he goes to the hospital, visit her, and finds out she woke up.
Oh, it was the
And he's
best.
like, "Oh my God, my church
Oh,
prayed for her this
best.
morning." And the guy's like, "She woke up yesterday."
Oh man, the best. No, not just yesterday. She woke up last night.
Last
She
night.
woke up
Yeah.
the earliest time for you to have lost this argument. You know what I mean? Not like she woke up a week ago.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, no,
yeah.
she woke up right before you did the
Right
thing.
before you did the thing.
Right before you did the thing. It's the best, and it's got this comedy that
Yeah.
it just lays there because there's no laugh track or anything,
Yeah.
and you just want to laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Because it's just the
Yeah.
best. Yeah. You see though that kind of humor a lot on this show, where it's just this kind of dark, weird humor.
Yeah.
Where yeah. Oh, sorry, Matt. Yeah. Oh,
No.
we just pray. Oh, my faith has just been proven, right? Like just I'm about to
Yep.
prove my life's worth and
Yeah,
dedication
yeah.
is true. The
Yeah.
guy takes it out from under me.
Nah.
It's the best.
Nah, couldn't have been that. Sorry.
No, no, wasn't that. Nope. Nope. Can't claim that one, Father.
I know it's such a like deflation of like everything he's hoping for. Like, really, that last night? Are you shitting me? Why couldn't she just wait to give me
Well, and I
hope?
wonder. If God knows all, He knew they were going to pray.
Right, right.
In the
He could take it
future,
that way.
and,
That's
and then
true.
so He just did it earlier.
There's always room for that, of course. But yeah, it's
it's
such
such
a great
a great.
thing, and it seems like a setup for that whole like he has the money, he gets to the bank, but it's like nah,
Yeah,
too late.
too late.
Even though everything was working right, but yeah, he's quite a character, definitely. I wonder what the final thing is going to be with him.
Mm-hmm. All right, so back to this scene here with John. Yeah, that was crazy. Him
Oh
and
yeah,
Lori. That's the whole story. We got to get how that happened. I
yeah,
mean, where Regina King is and
yeah, yeah.
not the daughter, but who else is missing? Somebody else was missing.
Oh, was somebody
Uh,
else missing?
was somebody else missing? Maybe it was just her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just her.
Like what's up with her? I guess she finally left John after all that.
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Which isn't that surprising, given where I think I remember they left off at the end of season
Mhm.
2. But it was also like kind of jarring. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's
Yeah.
just what happens when you cut to 3 years later.
Yeah. It's weird though. They're a weird group of people.
Definitely,
They've kind of all they're just a big commune
it's
now.
just a crew. Yeah, yeah. If you're in the club, if you were here for the craziness last 3 years ago,
Yeah, you're part of the family
you're
now.
just
So.
yeah. We're just all part of it. Even Matt's in there,
Mm-hmm.
despite his craziness.
Yeah, the sun's back.
But I guess they're all kind of crazy in a way. Not really.
Yeah. Who's not crazy?
Um,
Michael.
maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I guess he's not.
Maybe at least the least. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got some, strong beliefs about things that could
Mhm.
be perceived as crazy. But yeah, I guess he's not as crazy as Matt is.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you want to go to the next bit?
Yeah. So I guess that night they have a surprise birthday party for Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
And Jill shows up. I guess she was in college or something. Um, and
Oh, is that where she was gone?
I think so. I think that's what they say.
Okay.
It's some kind of break or the semester. There's some kind of reference where I think I realized on the rewatch that that's where she was going.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's what she says. Like, she's not going to be back before October 14th because like the semester won't end
That's right.
until later. So like this is the last time they'll see each other. So yeah. Anyway, we get the scene where the boys sit on the porch and discuss what they were doing at 25. I'm not quite sure why. I guess because Tommy just turned 25. I guess that's the point.
Uh-huh.
Kevin ends up telling the story of how he met Lori in a car accident, which is like a weird coincidence, or is it? Yeah. So anyway, then that scene ends, and then Jill's gonna go back to school, and finally, she asks about the baby, about Lily. like where
Mm-hmm.
she is, which was something that when I watched it the first time, I was wondering the whole time because I actually didn't remember where they left off with the baby in season 2. So
Yeah.
it's like, did something happen to the baby? Is it not there anymore? So I guess we have another kind of. It reminds me of that whole Kate thing from Lost of like,
Oh yeah.
don't ever ask me about Aaron. And so yeah, she's like, no, we don't talk about that, I guess, and there's a brief follow up with that with Kevin and Nora before they go to bed, like a brief discussion, kind of talking about Matt and Mary's kid,
Oh yeah.
and it's kind of insinuating like maybe there's a connection there, though it's not stated. Um, that's not really one scene, but it's sort of a sequence of things before we really get to the next thing that's in the morning. Um, but yeah, I was just gonna say about this whole baby thing. Like, I mean, I think it seems 100% clear to me that at some point this season we'll find out what happens to the baby.
Mm-hmm.
If I just based on Lost rules, like if he does the thing he did on Lost, then it's gonna be that Christine from season 1 showed back up and wanted the baby, or they found her or something, and that's where the
Mm-hmm.
baby is. I mean, that just because that's what the answer was with Kate.
Yep.
Don't ever ask me. It's with her. It's with the baby's grandmother. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not really that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, that's a good call. I would put my money on that. That it's nothing super dramatic. It's
yeah,
gonna be a fairly good case for the baby.
yeah,
It's not like the baby's gonna be in a worse place than with Nora.
right.
So yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like she got her life together and decided that she wanted to raise the baby or something.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine they could have some kind of thing. She felt bad about abandoning it.
Yeah.
Tracked it down. It just seems that's the most obvious explanation. So
Mm-hmm. She reconciled with her family, and they're gonna
yeah,
help her.
yeah,
And
exactly. And so yeah, and so I guess Nora's sad about losing it, but it's ultimately like fine for the baby, and.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's my prediction for that. Um, okay, so then do you have more, or do you go to the next thing?
Next thing.
Okay, so then the next morning, Nora goes out for. I thought she said she was going for a run, but apparently it's a bike ride. But maybe I misunderstood. Anyway, she leaves, and so then Kevin does a very normal thing, which is
Yeah.
just to show he's totally normal now.
It's so normal. There's a common word for it, right, Justin? What's that common word?
Oh God, there's a common word.
I don't know. No, I'm joking.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's not normal, so there's no common
I was
word.
I was like, oh shit, like head bagging. I don't know.
Now there's a word for it.
Yeah. So he goes into the closet. He gets a plastic bag from the dry cleaning. By the way, as you're doing your rewatch, I think you're not there yet, but I want you to tell me when you get there, please, if you can, what happened to Kevin's shirts. I repeat, what happened to Kevin's shirts?
I just got there where he goes and he's upset about his shirts, and he just gets shirts from the dry cleaner.
Yeah, and it really seemed like the dry cleaner guy was like, "Okay, you can have some white shirts. Get out,
listen,
please leave."
that's what I didn't like about that ending was it wasn't clear if those were really his shirts or not, or he just it seemed like he just gave him any white
shirts, please.
Because he said he was missing 8 shirts, and the guy did not give him 8 shirts.
No.
He just handed him like 4 shirts.
Here's
and was like, "Get
shirts.
out of my place.
Please leave. You're scaring me."
Yeah. Officer Mustard Stain. Yeah. Now he's gonna call him Officer Beat Me Up.
Officer Drunken Harass.
So where his shirts went? Are you asking like where they went before that?
I mean, like, what happened to his shirts? To me, like, it's an interesting mystery, and there is more on it. Just for the record,
there's more on it
in season 1.
Oh, okay,
yeah. There's another thing about the shirts. I don't want to spoil it because you may not remember it, and
I
it's
don't remember.
interesting. But honestly, I don't know what it means. So I think once you
Oh,
get there, we gotta talk about it because I'm really curious what you think. Because I'm really
nice.
not sure what happened to his shirts. I'm still like
I guess you could tell me. I
confused.
mean, I have seen it. I
Okay,
just
I
don't
mean,
remember what it
I
is.
didn't want to spoil it in case you wanted to experience it again because I didn't remember at all.
Is it a
Um,
memorable or is it an enjoyable experience?
I mean, it was for me. I guess I enjoyed the like, wow, they went back to the shirts. But yeah,
Mm,
I mean, do you? I could go
I get.
into it, or we
We'll
could
come
just talk
back
about
to
it
it.
later. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's super relevant for this episode.
Alright.
But I did notice that he had white shirts in his closet.
Mhm.
So it reminded me of the white shirts and also the laundromat thing, like that they lost his shirts supposedly, but I don't know if that's really what happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have serious doubts that that's what happened, but I don't know what did happen. Anyway, what did happen? What did happen? There we go. Woo! Grammar's hard. So anyway, he takes a plastic bag and he takes some duct tape that he has sitting in a box
Mhm.
and he wraps the plastic bag around his head and then he wraps duct tape around his neck and he breathes in and out with the plastic bag on his head.
Mhm.
I can't believe I'm describing this. It sounds ridiculous. This is what happened, kids. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you want me to say? And then we just kind of cut to him walking out of the house.
Mhm.
So what's going on there? What do you say? Thoughts?
So explain this shit. Yeah. Well, it's funny because in the beginning it seems like everyone's kind of doing well, and then slowly as the episode progresses, you see the veneer has some spots on it, which is a common
Yes,
saying. Everybody
definitely.
knows that saying. The veneer has spots on it.
Veneer has spots. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that all the time.
Yeah, it's Greek. Um,
King Oedipus, your veneer has spots.
that's what it's from. Yeah, so I don't know what's happening here. It's not quite autoerotic asphyxiation. They don't
No,
seem to show that he's masturbating or anything.
nope.
He's suffocating, so I don't know if. I mean, obviously, this is some kind of stress coping mechanism.
Yeah.
He wants to feel like he's dying, or
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. This is, I think.
So if we're going all in with Lost here, and I
Uh-huh.
have to say, like, some of what they're doing here definitely well, I say some, a lot of what they're doing, but in particular, this really reminds me of Lost. I think this could be something like the scene where Jack lights the dynamite and says, like, all right, what's
He's
gonna
trying to see if
happen
he can
now?
die.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's possible. That he's trying to see if he can die.
But would he do that before needing to go to work?
It's a weird thing to do before work. I fully admit it's not clear that it is that, but I feel like that's at least on the table. Since there's a thing about his not being able to
I
die.
I like that idea. I don't buy it for the scene. I love that explanation though. That's super insightful that he could be doing something like that.
Yeah.
I just don't buy it for this scene. Only because just why that versus something else. I mean, because
Well,
a bag is
as
just
you
a
get
bag is
into
just gonna
season
make it.
1, you'll see that a bag on the head does appear at a certain point in the story, which I did not remember. And the rewatch reminded me that it was a thing. So that might be the reason why it's that as opposed to something else. But I agree, it could just be a stress thing. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to go that far.
It looks like a ritual to me. It looks like something
It
he's done
does.
before because he's got a box for it. He's got a way he does
Yep.
it.
Yep. Yep.
So
But maybe he's ritualistically
I
seeing if he can die.
But the problem with that is then he would die. Now here's the thing. Now
Would
if
he?
what you're maybe I would maybe switch around your words. Now if you're saying maybe he's trying to go back to the hotel, that I could buy.
That is totally a possibility. Yeah.
That I would buy.
Yeah.
If he's trying to go back to the hotel, I could see that versus he just wants to like die or something.
Yeah. That he wants to go. Yeah. That's on the table, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
See
I could
if
buy
he can
that
die so he can go to the hotel.
I could like not even necessarily die, but just pass out enough to go.
Whatever
maybe.
he does.
Yeah,
when he goes
whatever
to the
he's
hotel.
gonna. Yeah, whatever he's trying to do, because the bag's just gonna make him pass out.
Go into the hotel
before it kills
state.
him.
I mean, they've sort of suggested that he's dying in some sense, and that's where you go when you die. But yeah, I mean, you know,
because he's like holding his breath, and he's just gonna pass out. He's not gonna die. And but the problem is if he passes out with his bag over his head, then he'll suffocate to death.
Right.
But that's gonna take a while. He's gotta get to work soon. So that's what's weird about it. That's what's weird about it. I don't know. Maybe he woke up super early. I don't know. Maybe it's like he's got enough time. But maybe he planned this out.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, that's an interesting idea. I think that's nice to have on the table as a possible explanation for that. But that's a very interesting thing the show does a lot. Is just these one little weird scenes, and they don't tell you what it's about, and you just left to kind of guess for a while.
Right. Yeah. There's no comment. I mean, it's just him, so like we don't really know what he even thinks about it.
Yeah.
Let alone what anyone else would think if they knew about it. Presumably, he's keeping this a secret from everyone. That's how they play it, at least, because he looks out the window to make sure, or he goes on the balcony or whatever to see that Nora's leaving before he pulls out the bag.
Yeah.
So yeah, I presume we'll get more on that. So I mean, there's a lot of things where I don't know if we'll get answers. I do think we'll get answers on that. I just I don't know when, and I don't know what they'll be. But yeah, I think that's the theory I'll throw out there. That sounds good to me. He's going back to the hotel. He's trying to quote unquote die, something along those lines.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So what happens next? He leaves. Oh right, he goes to the pond, the spring, the lake, whatever that place is from season 2. We all remember the Bird Lake.
Yeah.
And I guess some like protesters have supposedly poured poison into the lake because of the strike on the guilty remnants. Supposedly, again, like I kind of question this whole thing, but that's what's apparently happening. And then I guess Kevin decides to jump in and says like, "Oh, it's fine. It's not real poison. We're all good." And then he allows Michael to baptize him, although he says it doesn't count. And I guess that kind of diffuses the situation. Comments?
Yeah, lots of comments. Yeah, geez, so much happening here.
Yeah.
So, Kevin somehow knows it's not poison, which is strange.
Yeah.
Now, this would be interesting if he was trying to test if he could die before. Maybe he similarly has a death wish in this scene. And he was like, well, I'll just die. Hey, if it is poison, oh, well, I'll just go to the hotel like I want to. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to connect on that level or not.
Or did the poison not work on him because he can't die?
I don't think it's that because
I don't either. I'm just throwing it out there.
Because he says it's just water, and none of the protesters say no, it's not. It's sodium chloride.
Where did they go? I mean, it seemed like they really like. I don't know. They just kind of calmed down. Is that the thing? Like it was truly
a prank. Yeah, that was the thing. It was a prank.
It was truly a prank.
It was just a prank, and there was just water in them. I mean, where are they going to get chemicals?
You take it at face value. Yeah, okay.
I take it at face value. None of them seem to Now if we had a shot after Kevin leaves and somebody says that was hydrogen chloride,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, then it'd be like, oh, that's crazy.
Right.
It was definitely. I again, my jaw was on the floor when Kevin jumped in. I was like, "What am I? What?"
Yeah.
It's
It's really
because I
bizarre.
thought it was like, "Oh, he's just gonna drown himself now." Okay, that's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
weird. That's a weird. He's had enough for today. um,
Yeah. Or how about the poison dissipated? It's sort of like the Michael thing, from Lost, like, the gun not going off, like, because he can't die, the poison had to run away.
the poison ran away. The poison's like, let's GTFO. Kevin's coming. I don't think there was any poison in there. I think
Okay.
it was a bunch of kids that they had a prank.
You don't think
Yeah,
those kids had access to like barrels of
toxic
poison? Why
No,
why not?
yeah, I don't think they had it. Don't think they had it.
Okay.
It's a super. And so to me, it becomes a contrivance just to get Kevin in the water so he can get
Yep.
baptized.
Yeah.
That's really all it becomes, which is really
Clearly.
weird.
Yeah.
And he's like, and which is straight. I guess he's got to get baptized to prove the water's safe or something. And he feels like he needs
Yes.
to do that for the people there.
Yes.
But
That's
it's
what
a
it seems
it's
like.
a very strange like moment where he's like, okay, yeah, baptize me.
Yeah. I love
Uh
when Michael says, "Do you accept Jesus Christ as your?" And he's like,
huh.
"What?"
Uh-huh. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he was. I'm like, what am I watching?
Nobody ever says what when they're being baptized.
Yeah, that's
Like,
great.
it's a ritual. Just say yeah. What?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like Kevin hasn't contemplated that. Like after everything that's happened, wait, do
Right.
I think Jesus is my savior? That's
Yeah.
a complex question
Yeah,
there.
Don't hit me with that. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
fine, whatever. That didn't count though.
And I love that. I love that didn't count, which I think really says something powerful about like spiritual rituals or something.
Yeah.
Because like he did it.
He
Like
did it.
that's
Yeah.
a baptism. He got baptized. So
Yeah.
how does it not count? Did it only
Right.
count if you believe it
If you
counts?
put yeah.
I
Well,
mean, it's so weird. It's such a weird thing to be like, is he not saved now?
right.
Like it's such a great little what that one couple words, it just
Yeah.
completely throws into question that whole idea.
Yeah.
Like that is, can you imagine if a kid or somebody's getting baptized in church for real, and afterwards
Mhm.
they lean over to the priest, the minister, and he's like, and they're like, that didn't count.
That didn't count.
Crazy.
It would be. It would
That'd
be
be
very
crazy.
crazy.
That didn't count.
And I think your point is valid that, like, I mean, who is he to say it didn't count? I mean, it does seem like the people who witness it from the
Hmm.
shore, they don't hear him say that, and Matt says it's going to be written into the book. So it sort of seems like on a from an external point of view, it did count.
Hmm.
And so who are you to say it didn't count?
Yeah.
Is that really something that you can, or is it really just stamping your feet and saying it didn't count, but it really did, and you can't help it?
Hmm.
I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know if it matters at all. But I'm just gonna say baptism. I mean, that's something from Lost too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really goes back to certain things.
Hmm.
Quite a lot. But yeah, it's an interesting little incident. I guess it's partially about the larger society, but I think the main point was definitely the baptism.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing to show that there's this whole group of people who are, understand the conspiracy that the government has by killing the
Mm-hmm.
guilty remnant and justice for Evie and all that,
Yeah.
and which is pretty interesting, kind of just background action stuff.
Yeah.
Because it is crazy. The government just like, we're just gonna kill them all.
Yeah.
We'll just get rid of them this way.
Yeah. That's fine. Like
Yeah.
no one's gonna care. Because everyone hates those people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seems to be. So you ready for the next scene?
Yep.
So in the next scene, it's Tommy and Kevin in the car. He's drying out, and Tommy asks him about the explosion. And I guess we learned that the official story is that there was a gas leak and they lit a cigarette, which sounds like the Guilty Remnant to me.
Right? You know they have cigarettes, guys.
That seems like such a convenient, like, because gas leak already sounds like bullshit, but then, like, okay, well, they lit a cigarette because, they smoke a lot.
Yep.
It's like, but it's heavily implied. And of course, I mean, we saw the plane, we saw the bomb. It seems pretty definitive that that's not what really happened, and that's just the cover-up story, basically.
Yep.
But then Tommy interestingly asks how he knew that it was safe to jump in, how the poison wasn't real, and he's like, I just knew, and he's like, that's bullshit. And they don't get the chance to continue that conversation because Dean starts shooting at them. But it raises a question that I think I was just distracted by the Dean thing the first time I watched it. But when I watched it again, I realized, oh, how did he know? Is that a thing? You know what I mean? Like, is that a deal? Like, are they going to talk about how he knew later? It's opening the door for that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be there'll be other situations where his instinct will kick in and he'll know something he shouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're gonna do about that.
Did he know? Here's a crackpot theory. Did he go to the hotel and someone told him? Was it, what I mean? Was it some kind of weird thing like that? Like.
I don't think so. Why, you think he went to the hotel room in the previous scene?
Yeah, with the bag. If that actually works, of course, it might just not work at all, and he's trying and it's failing. It's a crackpot theory. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
true.
But I'm just trying to think. Like, it kind of reminds me of the Patty thing with the cell phone. In terms of like who would sort of know. Supposedly, because that's the thing about Patty's lies. She lies, but it's not clear that she didn't actually know what happened and just lied about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. Yeah, I don't know what to do about Kevin jumping in the water. Yeah, I guess we'll see what they do with that.
Yeah, I feel like that could be a thing. Because since they raised it as a question, at the very least, it's like I wasn't even really worrying about that. So it just made me think maybe I should worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Dean is shooting at them, and I guess Tommy steps in, shoots him. And then they cut to taking away the body. This is when the dog comes up and takes the the sandwich, which is completely ridiculous. So I guess that little bit is mostly functional. I guess we'll just say, I mean, this is the end of the Dean story.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, it just feels to me like they thought. And I feel like it's possible we'll see some of those other characters from season 1 that they dropped this season, just to kind of put some kind of endpoint on them, because really, like, the stuff in Mapleton didn't get an ending.
Yeah, they just left.
They left in episode 1. Well, not really, because episode 1 is we barely even see them. But in the first episode where they pick up with them, they decide to leave like really quickly.
Yeah.
And so there's really no like kind of end or closure with those characters, and so it seemed like it was closure with Dean. Dean's a crazy person. He's a crackpot, and so eventually he did something that got him killed. The end. Like it just kind of seemed like a way to. I found it kind of disappointing. I was kind of excited that they brought him back, and it's sort of like. you know, like his theory is kind of a joke, and then he just gets shot really quickly, and so it's sort of, I don't know. It was a bit of a letdown, but it just kind of seemed like, you know, you know, closing off that storyline, so we're not wondering whatever happened to Dean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think there's anything more to that? Like,
I don't think so. I think they're just trying to wrap it up and trying to show that Kevin's in a different place compared to Dean.
right. And it is
Uh,
consistent with his character, I have to admit. I mean, he
mhm.
is crazy. If you pay attention in season 1, he's a crazy person.
Well, I wrote that in my notes. Now I'm forgetting who says it. I'm forgetting who says it, but somebody says something like, literally, like, if you go around and shooting dogs, you're crazy. Somebody says that.
Oh,
um, which is a great
wow.
line because it just tells us Dean's crazy.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, because he kind of helps Kevin through
Mm-hmm.
season 1, um he didn't come off. I mean, he came off like he's, let's say, quirky, eccentric,
Yeah.
but not necessarily like, you know, full blown crazy in the way he's portrayed here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like dangerously crazy.
Yeah, maybe he's gotten worse.
Yeah, it
That's
does seem like he's
possible.
gotten worse. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, it was the mayor who said that shooting
Yeah.
dogs is what crazy people do.
Yeah. There we go. There we go.
But yeah, I'm curious to see what's gonna come of that. In terms of like Kevin and Dean, like, what is he just done with that? I imagine that's the end.
I
What
do
else can they
too.
really
I do
do?
too. It seemed like just we're gonna move on from here. Like that's the story is going in a direction where Dean's not gonna play a part. So
Hmm. Yeah.
you know.
Or he'll be in the hotel later or
Oh
something.
well, okay, yes. It's 100% open for hotel, and I would say that for Evie too, and Meg, and I feel like that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking about John's thing about maybe Evie's not dead. Like I feel like it's possible that his wish will be fulfilled in a way
Hmm.
by the fact that she might show up in the hotel or something like that, even though she really is dead.
I would also be on the lookout for some sort of Flash sideways this season, some sort of like
Yes.
alternate reality or something happening.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a possibility. Absolutely. Okay, so you ready for the next scene?
Yeah.
All right, so then we go. Kevin goes back home, and Mary's there, and turns out she's gonna leave. I love that. After all that,
Hmm.
you know what? Matt's like kind of crazy. Like, I'm gonna leave now.
Hmm. Yeah. It's been 3 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Still, though, I guess
But yeah,
for us,
I
it's
know.
like she's
Yeah.
leaving immediately.
Thanks for fixing me. I'm outie.
Done. Even though his story is so like revolved around her, especially in season 2. Um, but then it's like, yeah, but he is crazy.
Yeah. Wait, can I throw out? I gotta say a crazy theory, and because I don't think it's true.
Okay.
But when I mentioned the Flash sideways, I started thinking, this can't be true. I was just wondering, like, what if we're in some sort of alternate reality now, and like Kevin has a suspicion, and that's why he was doing the bag thing, like maybe trying to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. See, yeah, no, that's interesting. That's interesting. Um,
And so that idea, like, so maybe he jumped in the water because he knows he can't be killed in this
mm-hmm.
place or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just that was in my head, and I had to say that because I don't quite think it's true. But
I
I
can't
think it's
imagine the
look
show
out for.
giving such a big, all-encompassing answer like that. I guess that's the only reason why it doesn't seem plausible to me.
Wait,
But
what now?
I can't see the show giving such a clear answer about like why things are happening on the show. You know?
No, yeah, but I mean, like, not that the whole show is in some alternate reality thing, but
Oh, just now.
just what's happening now. Just
I
what's
was
happening
thinking
now.
you were going so far as that explains the departure.
No, 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 not that. No, no, not that
Okay.
far. No, just this season, just this whole
Just this
setup of the
season.
new world, just this whole new
Okay.
setup that they have here.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Because things are
when did
kind
they
of,
transition though?
because
I
things are
mean,
kind of all nice,
but
sort of.
you know, like I mean, it seems like what happened was a result of things that happened in season 2, which
Mhm.
presumably were not in the virtual,
Well,
or
yeah.
was Jordan
I mean, I don't
always
know.
virtual reality,
No,
or
no, 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 no. I wouldn't think that. I mean, it would be up to. I mean, if that's the story that they're telling, then I don't know. They would have to tell us when it changed.
right
So I mean,
in the 3 years, I guess.
yeah, at some point, or Kevin never left the hotel or
Is
something,
that when
or
Nora broke her arm?
that's
I
when
don't know
Nora
why
broke
that
her
would have
arm.
anything to do with anything, but Nora's broken arm, I feel
Yeah,
like must get an explanation at some point.
that was weird. It was weird.
It's a weird detail
Yeah,
that,
he didn't even ask to sign it.
yeah, exactly.
I feel like she was really upset about that.
I agree.
Yeah, what's the point of having a cast if no one's gonna ask to
That's the
sign it?
thing. That's what you do. I mean, yeah. Otherwise, it just sucks.
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing out of this but a
Exactly.
but a healed limb. Anyway, I
Yeah.
don't think it's true, but I think
I don't
we
either.
should be on the lookout of for something.
I think you're on the right
Like
track. I guess I see the hotel and stuff more as the Flash Sideways type thing than, their supposed reality. Um, but it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what else?
So then, as they're discussing that Mary's going to move back to Mapleton, um, she mentions, "Oh yeah, by the way, uh, Matt's writing a book about you. He thinks the New Testament is getting old," which I think is a great line.
Yeah, that's a great line.
It is old. It's really
It is
old for
old.
something called the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how he finds out about the Book of Kevin.
The Book of Kelvin.
Kelvin. And so he immediately goes to confront Matt about the Book of Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does, and he finds out, why, the stuff we talked about earlier. John's in on it too. He's buying into it. He's like, hey, this can't all be for nothing, which is just like such a non-John line. I'm like, what? Really?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, Mr. There's no miracles in Miracle. I guess that's supposed to be character development. But it's such a radical shift. I guess that's already hinted at by the fact that he's doing the palm print thing.
Mm-hmm. Or they're all in a Flash Sideways.
Or they're all. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is gonna be an interesting
because
season.
I know, right? every 5 minutes,
or
because hey, guess what? In on Lost in the Flash Sideways, Jack had a son, and on Leftovers, Kevin has a beard. I'm just saying, Kevin and John both have beards.
Oh God. Oh God.
Every man knows his beard is like his son's.
Speaking of Lost and things appearing and characters discussing things amongst each other, like we always wanted them to do, get together and have a discussion of their adventures. We do find out at the beginning of season 2 that Jill knew that Tommy left the baby there, but it's not clear if she knew where the baby came from, like that it came from Wayne. And Lori finds out about Wayne in season 2, but then it's not clear if she knew about the baby or that's where the baby came from. And then so now they're all together, but did they ever have the talk? Like did he ever tell them, "Oh, you know where I was? I was with this guy Wayne." And also, by the way, Nora could mention, "Oh, he hugged me when I was in New
Hmm.
York." Like,
Wow, that's a great
you
scene
know,
we'll
and
never
Kevin
see.
could mention, "Oh, I saw him in the bathroom right before he died."
Yeah. Oh, he was also in my
And
hotel.
he was in my hotel. It's like there's all these connections that do they even
Yeah.
know? You
No, I don't think they
know?
do. I
Like
feel like Tommy didn't probably tell them much about what happened, since it was so traumatic. And rewatching, going over the scene where he shoots Dean and he's all shaken up afterwards. I'm reminded that he has killed before. So that's not the first time he's killed somebody.
when did he I don't remember.
He shot. Oh, now I'm forgetting who he killed in season one. Um, I'm forgetting it now. Oh God, was it? It's on. It's when he's on the run with the girl. Yeah, I don't know. I have to go look it up now. I forgot.
Um, yeah, I don't remember that either. I didn't think he shot anybody. I don't know. Okay, that reminds me though, because I didn't really talk about that scene. I that was in the sort of post shooting Dean part. Um, you know, Kevin's like this struck me as like the weirdest thing ever. Kevin's like, oh, you gotta talk to someone. You know, even if you did what you had to do, and it's just part of your job. You know, I did it. You know, I had to shoot somebody. Yeah, there was this woman and she had armed guards and I just had to
Oh
shoot her.
yeah.
And it's Patty in the hotel. You're seriously talking about Patty in the
Mm-hmm.
hotel? That's
Mm-hmm.
your context? Are you serious? Like that was the
Well,
weirdest thing to me.
I thought that was super interesting because I was trying to figure out what does Kevin think about what happened with all that hotel stuff. Does he think it was real or does he think it happened in his mind?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt like we got two answers in this episode, two
Yep,
opposing answers.
of
And
course.
so this one was he was basically saying it was real. It's
Right.
real enough for him to have consider it experience.
Yeah, yeah, psychological impact.
Yeah, so that was real. But later is it? No, we'll get to it. But later, I think he contradicts himself, and he says, "I don't know." I wrote it down in my notes. We'll get
Yes.
to it. But
Later,
later,
I
there's a
believe he says it
contradiction.
was all in his head.
Yeah, it was on his head. Yeah.
Yeah. Which kind of indicates. I mean, but I do feel like the thing with Kevin. I mean, he's like Jack in certain ways, and I think this way is like pretty Jack-esque. Like this whole idea of he on some level like he does believe that it's a real thing, but there's this other part of him that's like completely not willing to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like when he was seeing Patty for a long time, he was just walking around with music blasting in his ears and trying to ignore her. And in season one, he's trying to he's also trying to sort of deny his issues with his fugue states or whatever. So I feel like that's a thing with him, like not really being able to accept the reality of what he's going through, and just kind of and with his own dad too. Like it's along
Mm-hmm.
similar lines. Um, so I feel like he has that conflict, and that's why we kind of get two answers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I just thought it was strange. Like it was strange to use like. He did work as a police officer for a long time. It was strange that his go-to example was like when I went to
Mm-hmm.
this crazy afterlife hotel and I had to shoot my adversary.
Yeah.
It's like what? Like that really messed me up, man. So yeah, you should go. You should go speak to a psychiatrist.
Yeah, when I shot the lady in my mind palace, yeah, that was
that
crazy.
was that was kind of a problem, and I'm glad I worked through those issues. Oh my god. So anyway, um, So yeah, we have this confrontation, and they have that list. They go through the list of the things that happened to him. You know, he was saved by the earthquake, and he drank poison, and he was shot, and you know, he came back, and they even, I guess he talked about the hotel at some point to Michael at least, because he was like, you told him, you know, you mentioned the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns out that a part of the book, I guess, would be some of the stuff that happened in the hotel, um, which is crazy. Um,
Yeah, it's crazy. He told them about the hotel.
and yeah, and Matt asserts that you cannot die here. Um, and yeah, and that, I mean, they come to blows because he's. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying you're Jesus, but the beard looks good on you.
Right. What a great line.
So ridiculous. Like, oh man, that was not the thing to say.
Um. Yeah, this whole thing, you can't die here, is very strange.
Very strange.
Yeah, very, very strange. And seemingly recent, event, right? Kevin, I guess it starts when he goes to Miracle.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It wasn't happening
yeah,
in Mapleton, seemingly. Although I think if Matt knew about some of the stuff in Mapleton, he might be interested. I guess he
yeah.
does, though. I guess he knows. I guess he knows about some of that stuff. He was there for some of that stuff. The stuff with Patty, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Uh,
but yeah,
so
it seems like he thinks there's some connection with Miracle again. Like, why? I don't really understand why he's so sure it has to do with Miracle and not with
because
Kevin
Miracle was
himself.
the only place where the miracle happened,
Right, of course.
and his powers are, strengthened by being in Miracle. I don't know.
Right. But I mean, it's still, I mean, whatever. This is Matt. That's what he
This
does.
I did want to say this scene explains the previous scene with the guys all hanging out talking about their 25th birthday or whatever. When Kevin talks about meeting Lori and he says it was, kismet or whatever, and
Oh yeah,
they all look really weird. I was
yeah,
like so confused by that. I was like, oh man, they all look sinister, and it's like all of them together.
yeah.
But I guess the idea is that was some sort of illustration of his belief system.
Yes,
So they wanted to like take note of that
definitely.
if Kevin believes in that kind of thing,
Divine
karma,
intervention is
whatever.
what he said
Yeah,
first.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. That was a hint, and I guess I didn't take it that way the first time. I thought it was just the fact that he used that kind of phrase, like
Hmm.
divine intervention. Seriously, like what do you mean specifically? But yeah, I think you're right. It was really more about like, oh, we should find out what the great Kevin believes.
Yeah. I first thought it was they had all made a pact not to talk about this supernatural stuff because
Right,
it had been all so horrible to them, and
right.
that nothing was supposed to happen, nothing's predetermined.
Yeah,
This just shit happens. Let's get over it, and never talk. So I thought at first like he had broken some sort of pact,
yeah.
but then yeah, it seems like they were just curious that he would say that, and then they're writing a book.
Right, right. Um, yeah. So, so then Kevin walks outside,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got the book. He manages to take the book. They don't want him to take it, but he takes it, and he goes outside. He goes over this barrel, the burning barrel. I don't exactly know why there's a burning barrel there. I guess to warn
I
people who
think
are
it's a
camping or something.
wasn't it a Oh, is that what it was? I thought it was like a barbecue pit.
Oh, it's barbecue. Yeah, that's what it is. It's barbecue for campers. Or maybe
Okay.
it's just barbecue for the church. I don't
I
know.
thought they were
Anyway,
just barbecuing. They just having a barbecue outside of the
they're
church.
just having barbecue outside the church. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's people camped out, so I don't know. I associate barbecues with camping. Anyway, it's a barbecue. Yeah, so he takes the grill off. He's gonna burn the book, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the implication.
Which weren't you thinking he's gonna put the book on the burner and it won't burn.
I thought something weird would happen. I was thinking like, don't you just want to look at it before you burn it? I mean,
I was
I would
hoping
at
you
least be
read it
curious.
too. Yeah, but I guess he knows what's in it.
I guess that's the point. Like, there's nothing in there that he
He
doesn't
doesn't
know
know.
better.
He doesn't know how they're characterizing him, but I guess he thinks he knows. Like he assumes
Yeah,
what it's gonna say and how it's gonna be written, and
right. So he doesn't need to
yeah.
bother to read it. Um, yes, but I guess before he burns it, I think he doesn't actually burn it. He looks up in the sky, and then there's a plane riding in the sky. 13 days to go, I guess, until the anniversary, the 7-year anniversary. And then we see some birds.
Mm-hmm.
And you know when the birds show up, things are gonna get weird.
There were birds. There was that bird in the hotel too.
There was a bird in the hotel.
Mm-hmm. Remember they were trying to catch the bird the whole time.
Oh God, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, the birds are a huge thing.
The birds. It's all about the birds.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, I didn't even realize. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. God, what are they gonna say about the birds? What is happening with the birds?
I know it's too many
The level
birds.
of intrigue with the birds is like
Right.
off the charts.
Right.
Holy shit. Okay, yeah, so birds transition to what I'm gonna call Australia, but you know, I guess it's not like it says it on the screen. It seems to me that it's Australia. And you know, we'll see. Anyway, we see some birds land and get put in cages by a mysterious woman with her back to the camera.
I swear the whole time I thought it was gonna be Kate because
Yeah,
it just felt
yeah.
such like a Lost thing. It was just gonna be
Definitely.
Kate turn around.
Yeah, you saw that thing where it's like the Lost-esque ending. It's really clear what they mean when you actually
yeah.
see it. It's like, oh yeah. It's they didn't do the voice thing at least, like, oh, I don't know, you know, like
Yeah.
like it's not really the person, but definitely when you don't see the face, it's a sign that it's probably someone you're going to recognize. So anyway, there's a message on the bird, but she just throws it away, doesn't even look at it. I guess that means something. What are these fucking messages? All right, so then she puts the birds are in cages. She loads them up because now she's going to do bird delivery. I don't fucking understand this scene at all.
Are you saying, wait. Are you saying she's going to send some airmail? Some par avion?
Oh no. Oh God.
I don't know how it is that we can never get away from Lost. You know,
It's so Lost.
We tried a
Holy
podcast about
shit,
a completely different show, and now we're still talking about Lost, no matter what.
Oh my God. I blame David Lindelof. I feel like he puts in so many things that
Yeah.
call back to Lost, whether deliberately or just because that's his style.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's really... Wow. Oh shit. I didn't even think... Oh, man. All right, so anyway, she's gonna go. I just feel weird describing the scene because I don't really understand it, but you know, we'll just go literally here. Sure. She rides a bike with some birds in the back, and she's gonna deliver them to a community garden that's at a church, I guess. And she drops off the birds, and she gets paid in something that I don't know exactly what it was. But anyway, this nun, I guess, in what I think is an Australian accent, but again, you know, we'll see. Asks Sarah, of course, because her name's Sarah. Does the name Kevin mean anything to you? And that's when we finally see her face, and it's, I guess, Nora older or with makeup, or it's Nora that's supposed to look older because she's wearing makeup, or she's actually wearing makeup. Anyway, it's Nora, and she says...
Or it's Nora older and wearing makeup.
Right. I guess that's the yes and that I forgot. Yeah, and she says, of course, no. Never heard of him.
No.
Who could that be?
What then? Who?
That's not a thing. There's no
Yeah, see,
Kevin.
and again, it does what Lost does, where you just have so many things piled on and so many
It's
questions, and then it doesn't even
yeah,
have to do it, but they flash forward
yeah.
and they leave you in a place that you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do
No,
that, you know?
no. It was
Kevin
enough.
Kevin deciding whether or not to burn the book would have been a fine ending.
Totally, totally. It's
Yeah.
crazy enough what they're already doing there. Like cutting
Mhm.
to this is like
Yeah.
completely blindsided me. I did not expect it at all.
Mhm.
And it raises so many questions. And yeah, okay, so you are on the same page. This is a flash forward. I mean, that's what I
It has to
thought
be a flash
the
forward.
first
Yeah.
time I saw it. And if Nora really is older and she's not just like pretending to be older in some disguise or something, which I presume she really is supposed to be older, um, this implies that it's many years
Yeah,
later.
yeah, at least 20.
Yeah, so like this like 13 days to go thing. I mean, clearly the world's not going to
Yeah.
end in 13 days. At least not
Something,
completely.
but I think something else happened. Yeah, something else
Yeah.
eventually happened.
Yeah.
And maybe Kevin got departed.
Sure.
You know, maybe there was a second departure.
That's definitely a possibility. I mean, the possibilities are kind of all over the place here. I would say, like, at a bare minimum, what I feel confident in predicting is that at some point, some of the characters are going to go to Australia. And I'm guessing that whatever happened to Kevin happened in Australia.
Mm,
Because I feel like there's some big thing coming in Australia. So let me just mention something from season 2 that I know you haven't gotten to it yet,
yeah.
but you did watch it, and on a rewatch, it's standing out way more. Sort of knowing that this Australia thing is like some significant part of the story. You remember at the beginning of the season, the guy on the watchtower hands this letter to Michael to this guy in Australia.
Mm.
And then we see some news reports about it. And then when Lori goes to get her book published, the guy mentions there's this guy in Australia. It's the same guy that the Watchtower was sending a letter to. I think he said something like he went into a cave, and then he came out and said that he couldn't die anymore.
Okay.
And his point, the publisher's point, was like, there's a lot of crazies after the departure.
Yeah.
But given where the plot's going this season, with Kevin, it definitely seems to me like perhaps we'll go see that guy, or whatever happened to that guy is some clue about what's going on with Kevin. There's something there. And Kevin's dad is there, and he spoke to his dad through the hotel TV in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that they're gonna, for whatever reason, I really don't know what the reason is. Maybe just to visit Kevin's dad, though that seems way too straightforward. They're gonna go to Australia. Something's gonna happen there, and that's when Nora's gonna start delivering birds. I just. And that's how I started delivering birds. That's the leftovers.
That's why I'm doing that. The leftovers. You know what's left over? All these birds I'm delivering.
What is she even doing with the birds? I don't understand. Where did she get the name Kevin from? It raises so many questions. I was just
okay. So I think we'd be remiss to not try to connect the ending to the beginning of the episode. So there's something with these birds.
Yeah,
and
totally. That's definitely a connection. Yeah. Birds and the messages.
So presumably, I'm gonna guess the messages are prayers or something.
Okay.
People maybe write a prayer on a bird and send it off, and
sounds so ridiculous.
So it goes to heaven.
Of course. Sorry. Excuse me.
Who else can take it there?
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Heaven just means sky. Like
heaven
hello.
means sky. That's literally it. So that's something connection there. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I do think it's a time jump.
Yeah, it definitely
it's interesting
seems like
again that using birds to kind of take us through that time jump. She did get paid in money. It did look like money. It was a weird angle, but
It looked like, I don't know. It looked like a
but
belt, like a piece of a belt. I don't know. I was confused. But yeah, okay. I guess
yeah,
it's
there
funny.
was.
I don't know.
Well, there was two. You know, she had. I think in one hand she had the belt rope or something, and then in her other hand she had money.
Oh, but I thought they were both belts. I don't know. Okay,
Yeah, the
whatever.
money looked weird. It was a weird shot.
Yeah.
And then, but it was looked like a lot of money for birds.
Yeah, I
And the
know. What are
question
you
is,
doing with all these birds?
where are they coming from?
Yeah, totally. Where are they coming? Yeah, I mean, it seems to be totally isolated. All we see besides this church and Nora is sheep. So, I mean, I guess someone tends to the sheep, but it seems like a very isolated area. So, I mean,
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry. I'm looking at it again. So she's at some kind of house, and she has that's where the birds come
that's
from.
where the that's
Like
where the
she's got a bird something,
yeah,
a
yeah, but
birdhouse.
the birds go there too. Like they're not
Yeah,
just, you know what I mean?
but she yeah. But so the birds go to her place, and then
Yeah.
she takes the
She
birds.
takes them to. So is it that like the church hands out the birds and then they put a message and then they go and then she throws it away? What the fuck is the point of that? Okay, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening with the birds.
Let me see. She gets the birds have a message. She throws it away. Yeah, that's it. Maybe this is just like the handprint thing. It's just a service to make people feel better.
Are they
Uh,
messages about Kevin and she's hiding them? And that's and like she doesn't throw them all away, but she just threw that one away. Or maybe they are all about Kevin and she just doesn't.
I
I don't
don't think they're
understand.
about Kevin.
I'm just trying. I'm trying. I
I think
just
the
don't
Kevin thing came.
understand.
I didn't think the Kevin thing came from the notes. I think because the lady didn't see the
I
notes.
agree. I agree, but I don't understand how she knows about Kevin at
I think
all.
well, I think
But
something happened off screen.
well,
Something
yeah.
happened, yeah, off screen. Maybe Kevin called
Right,
or
right.
something. You know, she found out something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I don't understand why she's throwing away the messages. You know what I mean? And the only thing that we know, sort of definitively, besides the fact that she's bird delivery now, is that she's under an assumed identity and she's pretending she doesn't know who Kevin is.
Yeah, that's why my guess right now is going to be like if I can't really figure out how this would work, but somehow people write maybe the church maybe this is a service the church does, and they say hey.
Mm-hmm. Oh God.
Hey, you want to write some prayers down? We'll put it on a bird for you. And then,
Now it sounds like Portlandia.
and then
We'll put
yeah,
it on a bird.
exactly. Instead of putting a bird on it, you put it on a bird. And so people write a message, and then they put a bird on it, then they release the birds, and then the birds go to Nora's place, and yeah, like I said, so it's kind of like the handprint thing where it's just a service that they're doing to make people feel better.
But the messages just get thrown away.
That's why the messages don't matter. And by the
Okay.
way, I do want to connect this to Lost, and it reminds me of
The
the
notebooks from the Pearl.
the what?
The notebooks from the Pearl.
Yes, exactly. Notebooks from the
That's
Pearl.
what it made me think of too.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
like this endless stream of crap
Yep.
that's just sitting there that people are
Where
sending.
where the people who are sending it think it's important, but the
Yeah.
people who are controlling the situation know that it's the least important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If that really was the story, I feel like we never fully understood
Yeah,
the
we
pile
didn't
of
get
notebooks.
all of it.
But that's
all
a
of it.
plausible theory at least.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll understand better what's going on with these birds. I mean, clearly the birds are a thing. I mean, they wouldn't go back to the birds this much if it wasn't a thing.
I think birds are just really going to just be symbolic, though. I don't think they're going to, because it's not, it's any bird, right? We've seen different types of birds almost each time birds come up. So it's not like, oh, only these kind of birds are important or something. It's
Right.
just sort of birds in general. And
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be at the end of the day just a symbolic thing, the same way the cave woman saw a bird,
Mhm.
like that idea of now going forward humans will have this symbolic connection to birds because of just how they are and the symbolizing freedom or whatever, whatever, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
like that idea of that birds becoming a symbol by which we can just like transpose meaning or something.
Right, right.
And that's why in this last scene, like and again, like I was gonna say like in the last scene, then the notes don't matter. But in the first scene, the guy wasn't he reading the notes and using the notes to figure out
He was, he was paying attention to the notes,
yeah. So that's sort of the evolution there, is like the notes don't matter,
right,
because they're not trying to like predict anything,
right. But what are they doing? I mean, I think it raises a lot of so it's crazy. I can't. So I'm just gonna say on a critical note or something. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it because I watched a lot of shows with flash forward. I mean, flash forwards is like it's a thing, and I think it's interesting when you do it, and it allows you to do certain things that don't work any other way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, throwing this in like just completely shifts in my brain like what's going on in this story. And it kind of puts this, but I think the downside of flash forwards that it was true on Lost and Battlestar Galactica and like all the shows where they kind of did something like this is it does kind of start to contain the story in terms of possibilities. Like once we say this, there's certain things that just can't happen. Like, for example, Nora's not going to die anytime soon. She's going to end up in Australia. She's going to get to a certain age, and Kevin's not going to be with her. And we just know these things now. Unless he's hiding in the basement or something.
Yeah.
But like, as soon as you commit to those things, now like the possibilities for the story start to narrow. Not that it's that narrow at this point, but it is narrower than it would be if they just ended with Kevin burning the book or not burning the book. You know?
For sure.
Because then it would have been totally crazy that the story goes here. Which I guess is why they put it in. But I'm always not sure. Yeah. I'm not always sure. Let's say it that way.
That made sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that. Can I say I'm always not sure? I'm not always sure. I'm not. Is there a difference? Anyway.
Yeah, there's a difference. One is I'm not always sure means there's sometimes when you're sure and sometimes when you're not. The
Thank
other,
you.
I'm always not sure means there's never a time where you're not sure.
So I'm always.
Thank you, English.
I know, right? You're welcome. I'm always not sure. That's the one it is. Whether the story wouldn't be better just told directly. Like we just get there through the course of the story. We don't know in advance that we're gonna end up there. You know what I mean? Like I'm not sure if that's the best. Now, since there's only 8 episodes and since we're close to the end, it's not quite like the season 4 thing. Like I think it's not as big of a thing as that because it really is like. It's a little more along the lines of us in a single episode. You cut to something and then 48 hours earlier. It's a little more like that.
It can work. I think it works when it's about when like what you cut to isn't really making you lose anything, because what you're gonna fill in later will be the important part, which is how you get there, how you get to that future point.
Right.
So like we have to go back and all that stuff works really well because at a certain point you're going to know what they're trying to do. So it doesn't matter that they're trying to get back to the island. What matters is how they're going to do it.
Right.
But I generally hate flash forwards if a story, if an episode or a movie starts off with a flash forward, I'm automatically hate you. So you automatically now have to work harder because I agree. I think it works so much better to get there because when you start with the flash forward, you're usually starting at the climax of the episode or whatever, or at some hiding point.
Right.
And all that does is take you out of it when you get back to that point later. It gives you a weird context for the story the whole time.
Yeah.
And then so I'd rather the story start wherever it just starts. If it doesn't start at a high note, fine. It doesn't start at a high note.
Right.
Like the story should be good enough to hold your attention the whole time.
Definitely.
You shouldn't need to pull that gimmick of like, here's the fucking craziest thing ever, and then like 2 years before, and
Right,
then it's just,
right.
and then now I have to sit and go, well, how are they going to get to that
And the
thing?
whole
And
time it's like, well, we're gonna get there, and it's like there.
yeah,
I think the thought is like it makes it more. It makes the slow parts more interesting because you know it's gonna go to some crazy place. But for
mm-hmm.
me, it makes it less interesting because
It's so yeah, yeah.
it's guaranteed where I'm gonna end up.
Yeah, I watched this sci-fi movie called The Fifth Wave recently, and they it's about this like, it's like a young adult sci-fi story,
Mm-hmm.
Hunger Games or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's about this girl who like is in the middle of like a alien invasion kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so she starts out like a normal girl, obviously. She doesn't have any alien fighting skills. And then, of course, she becomes a badass over time, a
Right,
survivalist or
right.
whatever. But so
Yeah.
they start the story with this flash forward of her kind of being in the survivalist mode, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and she's kind of a badass and everything. And then
Yeah.
they're like, 2 months before, whatever. And
Right.
so, and then she's like normal the whole time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I'd really rather have started the story not knowing where she's going to end up,
Right. Yeah.
not knowing that in every situation she's going to get out of it,
Right.
because I saw her in that other scene
She's
that's going
gonna
to come
make it. That
later,
hasn't happened
and
yet.
and and
Yeah.
not knowing how capable she's going to become. There's
Yeah.
no like surprise anymore. If
Yeah.
she'll be able to make. So anyway, just an example of like most times I don't think it works. I think. I complained to you all the time when I was watching Southland, because that was their gimmick for that show, was they would do a flash forward. Every episode started with a flash forward
Mm-hmm.
of the climax of the episode, which was
Yeah.
horrible. And I just would skip it. I would just like skip past that first like
Yeah.
30
Yeah.
minute, and it was so much better.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that reminds me of that thing from Battlestar Galactica. I mean, they actually did the flash forward thing a couple times, but what they did for every episode was like show flashes of
Which is the
scenes.
weirdest thing.
It
That's
is.
the worst. That's un something. What's the word? That's reprehensible.
Yeah, it was a bad decision, and luckily they played that drum music over it every time, so I could shut my eyes and I knew when it was over.
Yeah.
But it's just like, why do I have to shut my eyes watching this show? It's just why are you showing this? Who is this benefiting?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna get a shot like this, so you'll stay tuned.
Yeah, I can't wait.
The fuck?
That flash that they showed for a couple frames looked really interesting. I can't
Yeah,
wait to get back to that point.
yeah. Like, what the fuck? I don't. So weird. This isn't really like that. I guess it's not a flashy thing. It's really just it's saying something about I'm guessing not the end of the show, but something close to the end of the show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it gives us an extra, and I think it makes sense that this is the last season, so they can have a little more leeway to do kind of interesting things. But yeah, I think it gives us a hint of where it's gonna go.
Yeah,
Which is interesting in and of itself, that they thought they needed to do that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
to kind
definitely.
of to kind of bookend it in a way.
Yeah, because I really feel like the leftovers, at least early on, and I would say even in season two, when like things got really out of control, I feel like they've done a pretty good job of like taking this path of focusing an equal amount of time on just straight up family drama
Mm-hmm.
with this kind of outrageous supernatural, more like plot driven stuff.
Yeah.
And the show's like, even in especially in season one, like it was a little more family drama, not as much crazy. And then in season two, the crazy kind of took a larger role. By doing something like this, you really put the crazy and the plot front and center.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though like it does seem like it is also about the drama of how she got there, but still though the fact that it's not just like life in the sudden departure, it's like no, there's a path here. There's a journey. There's some kind of series of events that
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna see play out, or we're gonna understand, that will lead to that point. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Breaking Bad in a way, like that the Breaking Bad flash forward. Like it seems to me like it'll be something along those lines, where we'll pick back up with it like way towards the end, and the final thing will be something shortly after that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to give us that flash forward, and now we have to just sit and wonder.
Yeah, and I guess I mean that's what you can get on a podcast and speculate about, and like I really can't speculate that specifically because I feel like we don't know very much about Australia
Mm-hmm.
yet, and so I can only vaguely guess.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I guess it's Australia. There are Anglican churches in America.
Sure.
But the accent,
Yeah.
is something.
The sheep. There's no sheep in the United States.
Okay.
Certainly not that many.
Certainly not that many. The other thing I was gonna say about that,
she's not in Jordan. I think we can conclude that at least.
No, she's not in Jordan.
But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of hints that we're going to Australia. So it's circumstantial as well as those like smaller clues.
Yeah, so I was gonna just do a crackpot out there. Maybe they get some. Maybe Kevin goes to the hotel. Maybe Evie's alive in the hotel place. So
yeah.
Maybe they go to Australia to try to save her or something. I thought maybe that might be something to get everybody to go out there.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt like Nora's in a place that she goes to after Kevin dies or she loses him or whatever. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like,
I agree, but I assume it was somewhere else in Australia.
Just another area?
Yeah, that was my guess. That she kind of retired to the countryside and started delivering birds after whatever happened. I'm assuming it all happened in Australia. I don't know. That's my guess. I feel like the place is a clue about what happened, and I just don't think she just went to Australia after everything happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my theory. I don't know, obviously.
Well, it could be something happened and then she goes by herself to Australia.
It could
to try to, try to get Kevin back or something.
Right. Yeah, it could definitely go that way. I think Australia will play a role one way or another, but yeah, it's definitely.
I'm expecting some ending to be similar to the Light Cave. I'm expecting to get some kind of other information about the underlying supernatural qualities of the world and like what's nothing too concrete, but like
clearly nothing too concrete, but
something more fleshing it out.
Yeah, I agree. That was something I noticed in season 1, like the building intrigue about what was the sudden departure. And I know like the whole thing about the show is like we're never going to explain the sudden departure. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily expect that, but on the other hand, I agree that I feel like there will be something, even if it's kind of like just exactly like the Cave of Light, where it's sort of like if you want to know what the island is, like here's kind of an answer, but it doesn't necessarily help that much.
Yep.
I feel like something like that could definitely be coming. It seems likely.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
I don't know what form it's going to take. I can't imagine he'll do a Cave of Light again. But, what's that going to look like? I really don't know.
Well, all right. Well, that's the episode proper. I guess we can talk about more general stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of notes from the rewatch that might be fun to go through.
Yeah, definitely. Rewatch is I found I enjoyed season 1 so much more this time than I did the first time.
Yeah, when you know where it's going, you know what is important and not important. It was way more interesting to watch. I was less frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm still not convinced that what's happening in Mapleton in season 1 is the most interesting thing happening in that world. But it's definitely was a lot better during the rewatch.
Yeah. I think they're getting closer in the show to the more interesting things happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
So let's see. Some notes I had. I said Lindelof loves writing about groups organized around beliefs.
Yep.
Usually unusual beliefs.
Of course.
Obviously, like the others.
Yeah.
Everybody on Lost, really.
Even Dharma to a certain extent.
Yeah, Dharma. Exactly. Everybody organized around beliefs. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I was making a list of the birds. The cave woman sees birds. Regina King's birds. Matt's birds at the casino.
Yeah.
A lot of birds.
So many birds.
Doves specifically are a Christian symbol. So that does tie to the Anglican Church thing. The doves you see at the end. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. I got some notes to see. First episode in the pilot starts with an improbable event that overshadows other possible improbable events. So that was kind of a pattern I noticed on the show. And Lost has this too. We've sort of talked about that where sort of one crazy event is used as evidence that other crazy events could happen.
Right.
So the whole show is that. The whole show is one crazy event overshadowing other events that could be possibly also crazy.
Right. Yeah. I believe in God because a spinal surgeon crashed on the island when I had cancer or something. It's like...
Yep. What are the odds of that? It was an improbable event.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to choose to believe that it's I'm going to place this meaning on it.
Right.
That it's important and whatever. So let's see. Yeah, another 3-year jump like in season 3. So the deer in the yard ? Is what I wrote.
Oh yeah.
So if you remember, the dog that Dean shot, I think Kevin goes to the owner's house to tell her that the dog has been killed. And she doesn't care, of course. But when he goes up to her door, he sees a deer in the yard. It looks like an ornament, like a yard ornament or whatever you call those things.
Yeah.
So it looked like a fake deer. And then once he leaves her house, the deer's not there.
Right.
Very strange.
Very strange.
We'll come back to that. And then I made a note that his daughter says that the departed aren't coming back.
Oh.
Thought that was an interesting specific thing a character has said about the state of the departed. Let's see. One of the twins that the girls are hanging out with says that man is going primal. It's just taking longer.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was interesting considering the end of season 2 with the sort of chaos.
Definitely.
That sort of took over. So the first blackout Kevin has is when he hits the deer, and then he wakes up the next morning in bed and he sees the kitchen is destroyed. So that's the first blackout.
Right.
So the deer saga, as I've written it, is he sees the deer in the yard, and then it's gone, and then he runs over a deer. And that goes into his blackout. And then later he sees a whole deer in a street, the ones that the dogs go after.
Right.
So he's seeing a lot of deer. So do you have any ideas about what is happening here with the whole deer and
that deer
especially
thing.
the whole deer, fake deer?
Fake deer?
The deer in the yard.
Oh, the deer in the yard. Right. Yeah, and there was the deer in the school, and there was the deer...
Oh, I don't think I got the deer in the school.
Yeah, I guess you haven't gotten to that point yet. Oh, yeah, I know why you haven't gotten to that point yet. Later in the season. And there's also... oh, no, there was the same deer. It was the same... Yeah, like, it turns out that... I feel like now I'm spoiling the rewatch for you, but...
That's right.
It's sort of like if you're discussing the deer, you got to talk about the other stuff. It turns out that he saw the deer before. He saw the deer the day of the departure, I believe.
Oh.
I think that's the final reveal. He saw it, and then I think it ends up getting shot or something. and like it was glowing, it was gleaming. There was some kind of gleaming.
Oh wow.
I can't come up with a better word. Shining, a shiny glowing. Anyway, but then like
luminance.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Go Latin. That's the way.
When in doubt, go Latin.
But when he finds it, he finds like it's just got this like shiny balloon attached to it, and so he concludes, I guess, that it was just like the sun like reflecting off of this like shiny silver balloon.
All right.
So then it's sort of like, what did the deer mean? But I think that was the final reveal about the deer, that he actually saw it a couple times.
So the same deer that's happening in this episode, in the pilot, is supposed to be the deer he saw on the departure date?
Well, I feel like there's no way it can be the same deer, because I think that deer is dead. And I mean, he hits a deer
so he
too.
Saw a deer.
Yeah, and there's a deer that the dogs.
But did he really hit a deer? Because he never like has to fix his car or anything.
Yeah, that's true. It did kind of seem like that was maybe a dream sequence. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, it was really, really.
It was almost like the deer sent the dream, like the deer who like fucked up his kitchen.
It was almost like a premonition of what could happen.
Yeah.
Like he could have run over the deer, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it sent a shockwave back in time or something. It's weird.
Yeah. So I definitely don't know what the explanation for the deer is. It seems like it's symbolic. Really, it seems like it's like the birds in some way. It's like a sign. It's an omen. It's also a bit like the dogs in that it's like things from the natural world that are behaving strangely after the sudden departure. It's like going into buildings for some reason, messing things up. It seems like it's following Kevin around. It's not clear.
Are you saying that the animals are guilty remnants?
Well, maybe so. Man. They just want him to remember. We're the living reminders.
They're the living reminders. We can't smoke or wear white, but we're guilty remnants too. God, I would love to ask Damon. I would love to ask Damon that question. That's such a hilarious question. Are the animals also guilty remnants?
Hey, yeah. That's an interesting theory.
Because, and that's the thing. I think we mentioned that on the other Leftovers podcast we did. But the question of, did any animals get departed?
Yes.
Did 2% of all life on Earth go?
Right. Yeah. That's a good question. I feel like I don't think there's been any confirmed animal departures. But yeah, I wonder. Because it just seemed like the dogs, like, didn't depart, but they went crazy.
The dogs who saw other people depart, yeah.
Well, that was what the twin guy said. I feel like it's still an open question exactly what happened with the dogs, but I think that is a plausible theory.
Yeah. That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, on a Damon Lindelof show, you always have to point out, that's just what such and such character said. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a plausible, that's, it seems likely to me that something like that is what happened.
Yeah. Let's see. I got some notes. Let's see. Next episode, 102. So Holy Wayne is a criminal con artist per the cops. So I thought that was interesting that fairly soon after they say Wayne has magic hugs, that we see somebody say no, he's just a con artist.
Right.
Then we get into, let's see. Oh, there was a scene where Jill and her friend Amy are in a coffee shop, and they see, this is when Jill sees the gun in Nora's purse.
Yeah.
And they have a moment where the girls just start hypothesizing about why she has it, and I thought that was an interesting sort of kind of a way to teach the audience what to do. Of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey, if you see something, just start coming up with answers. Just
yeah,
start speculating.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like they were
So
podcasting about the
yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah, and it's funny because Amy was almost right in what she guessed.
Oh, what did she say?
Well, I think
I don't remember.
she was basically saying Nora was going to try to kill herself with it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not quite that, but she does want to shoot herself with
It's
it.
punishing herself. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's at least in that direction. Yeah.
Then I made that note that this is when the mayor says shooting dogs is what crazy people do.
Hmm.
A hint that Dean is just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I made the note about it would be nice to know the politics behind the departure benefits program
Hmm.
because that is massive socialism. Um,
Unprecedented.
it's unprecedented. Sad. Um, then I had some notes about the Holy Wayne Shuffle.
Oh yeah.
So I guess we'll talk about that. The kind of Lindelof Ian writing tools or something. So we've talked before about the Lindelof Shuffle.
Yeah.
Which I think we defined, but I guess I would define it as particularly that the audience and the character is presented with an unusual situation or a question: is this thing true or false, or did this thing happen? And then the story presents multiple sides
Yeah.
pro for each category.
Right. Right.
And then you're left to decide, what to think. And oftentimes it's neither of the two
Of
choices,
course. Of
or it's some
course.
other variation on the choices that was not clear from the presentation of the problem.
Right.
So the Holy Wayne Shuffle would basically be, is Holy Wayne magical?
Right.
So the first information we get is the congressman seems to believe that he's real. He feels
Yep.
relieved. That seems like evidence. But then, like I said, in the next episode, the police say he's a con man.
Right.
And then that's all I wrote so far from that point in the episode. But what were you gonna say?
There's definitely more to come on the Wayne.
There's definitely more to come. We
the
obviously
Wayne
get
saga
to
is a whole thing in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, and we get to the end of that, and we realize there's nothing powerful about it. What's interesting though is again, like I guess when that little dialogue when Nora goes to the conference in D.C., that line about that the guy is talking about, this idea that all these prophets come out when there's something crazy that happens,
Yeah.
So Wayne being kind of the first example of that was interesting.
Right. I thought it was interesting that that guy who wrote the book, What's Next?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like Nora confronts him, and it turns out that he didn't put this in the book, but apparently he went to see Wayne, and that's the reason why he's actually I guess been able to cope with members of his family disappearing.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting, strange thing.
It's another thing about where you see something in a broken version, because Nora goes, "Oh no, you're a fraud, because if this happened to you, you'd be broke,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to cope with this situation."
Yeah.
But it's like, no, actually, it did happen to me. I wasn't able to cope until this other thing happened,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very cool, very interesting, turnabout. Because you go, wow, she's uncovered the fraud, but no, he seems like there's another reason why, he could seem that way.
Right. And so it seemed like that helped him. It seemed like it helped Nora to some extent, but then obviously her problems are not over at that point. So it's not permanent or, truly supernatural in a really heavy, obvious way. And I think the end point, I don't know, do you want to talk about the ending thing with Wayne?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So well, there's sort of two beats to the ending with Wayne. The first beat is we find out that, after telling Tommy, the baby, I mean, the baby was a prophecy baby, you know, Wayne goes to Tommy. He's like, you have to protect this baby. This baby's very important. And, this baby's gonna, I don't know. It's vague, but it's sort of like, this baby is so important that you should give your life to protecting it.
Yeah.
And sends him on this whole mission. And then at a certain point, when he calls him and asks him to leave like some of his money in under a mailbox or whatever, he follows it and he realizes like there's another, there's another girl,
there's another
baby, there's another him, and they were told exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
which
great.
Which calls into, immediately calls into question how whether he even believed what he was saying, let alone whether it's true. It definitely seems like, that was just a line, I guess to get their loyalty, to get them to protect the babies, and the women, I guess. But
it does, real quick, it does connect to what happens in 301 where they're arguing about that Gary Busey statue, and then Kevin makes those guys his deputies, and then Tommy's like, wow, it shows what happens when you make people feel important. So I think that's exactly what happened with Wayne. Made those guys feel important.
Definitely.
He made the women feel important. He made Tommy and the other guy feel important.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it was. And it does seem like, it seems to me like that was all an illusion. I mean, especially if the baby's not even on the show anymore. It seems like that whole thing was kind of like the Aaron stuff with the psychic and all that. It was just misdirection, and it was bullshit basically.
It was just a guy who was taking advantage of the situation.
Mm-hmm. But the final thing with Wayne, which well, and then I guess there's an epilogue to the final thing. But anyway, the final thing with Wayne is he's like, Kevin runs into him in a bathroom at a restaurant or diner type place, and he's been shot, he's dying, and he's being pursued by the ATFC, I guess, and he says I think I might be a fraud, and it's like, what? After all that, you think you might be a fraud?
It's finally dawning on you, now that you're dying, that you might not be this special guy you thought.
And I remember getting so frustrated by that, but then, because it's Damon Lindelof, but then he's like, but if I'm not, I can grant you a wish.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, man.
And so he's like, so make a wish. You don't have to say it out loud. Just think it.
Of course you don't have to say it out loud.
And so Kevin thinks of something, presumably, and he goes, granted.
Oh, good.
And then he dies. And so that was the final thing with Wayne.
Yeah.
Which it's like,
But here's the thing. He says granted, but did he come in that moment to realize he had power? Because he just said he thought he might be a fraud. But if I'm not, I can grant you a wish. So how did he know it was granted?
That's why I say Damon Lindelof. I mean, it's going back and forth between those things, and it's not clear what the answer is really. Though I feel like, his being a fraud is the more like the bagels in the thing, in the machine. They were just stuck behind there. The more logical, reasonable explanation is that he was a fraud and that he wanted to believe that he wasn't. And, as he was dying, he sort of had this moment, but it didn't necessarily mean that he had powers or anything. However, it made me wonder about how much he knew. I mean, given the fact that Tommy actually leaves the baby with Kevin, It's weird. Like, it's Wayne's baby. I don't know if he ever even knows. I guess that's what I was asking earlier. I guess he never knows that that guy that he ran into that granted his wish, that was his fucking baby that he took care of for, I don't know how long, years maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And that's where his son was,
Yep.
stepson, I guess. But anyway, like that. I mean, that. What the fuck? Anyway, in season 2, when Lori and Tommy have their whole thing of like, we have to provide something to these people who are leaving the guilty remnant, because like we're taking away the guilty remnant, way of life and ideology, and but we're not replacing it with anything, and so like it's not working, it's not sticking, you know what I mean? They don't have anything to fill that. So then, Tommy decides to start giving Wayne hugs, basically. Before he does that, he tells this story that right before he left the baby, that like Wayne came to him and like told him the secret of how to do the hugs and all this stuff, and like it's like it comes off like such bullshit, But then I started thinking like, God, is it possible that Wayne, that because like all that's off screen, like the last thing we see with Tommy is like the discovery, when Christina abandons the baby, that's the last thing we see, and he says it was after that. And, the next time is when he's dropping the baby off. And, it seemed like the story was bullshit. But then I started thinking, like, is it just the biggest coincidence in the world? Or is it possible that he actually told him to drop the baby off at Kevin's place, and he knew when he granted Kevin's wish that Kevin was going to get his baby? Like, is it even possible?
No.
It made me wonder, I'll say, and it's like I can't prove this not true, but I agree. I mean, I think it's pretty unlikely.
Well, I mean, what goes in the category of Wayne doing something supernatural?
I know. It's hard to define. And that's why I say, like, to the extent that people say it works, I mean, that doesn't have to be supernatural, I guess. But
no, placebos aren't supernatural.
But I guess, like, it does mean he's doing something, if not supernatural, And
but he has to pass the supernatural claim, right? Because for the other things to be valid questions, right? You can't say, does he know the future, unless you can make him pass the supernatural claim, right?
Right.
So he can't know the future if he's
like
just providing a placebo.
It seemed like he knew he was. Well, he said he knew he was going to die soon. But then, on the other hand, he's being pursued by the pretty ruthless ATFC. So it's not like you have to be Nostradamus to come up with, they're going to catch up with me and kill me soon. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like the most amazing prediction in the world, though he was right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's any clear evidence, and I'm only midway through season 2, so I haven't actually gotten to the part in the hotel yet, because I know he shows up in the hotel too, and I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see him in season 3, if they're going to do some final thing with Wayne, because they cared enough to go back to him in season 2, and so I'm kind of, I mean, he's a significant presence on the show, and given the fact that they are going in a maybe there is supernatural stuff direction, it seems like the door's open there for, like, Wayne was real.
I guess he could be a real guy who's just still a douchebag,
Yeah, exactly. Like the Damon Lindelof, like, it's both. Like, he's a con man and he's real.
Yeah, I don't think the baby thing is anything real.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the hug thing. It just seems like, what are really his powers? Like, he can see the future and give hugs. Like, that
It
seems
could take your
weird.
pain away
But also see the future.
and see the future. I don't know why
That's a
that's.
weird, yeah,
I don't
just
know
a
why that's
weird
connected. And it
set
can
of
grant wishes
powers,
too.
and it can grant wishes. Like,
It's a bit much.
that's
It's a bit
weird.
much.
Yeah,
Too far,
yeah.
Wayne. Too far.
And that's the thing. I feel like we never get what Wayne really wants and what this whole group is all about. And
I
how he
agree.
really, because he has a whole operation going when we first meet him.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
he's got all these people who are bought into what's happening.
Yeah.
Um. So there has to
Maybe
be
it's
some kind
just
of
about
motivation.
money. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. How much does he believe his own bullshit? I guess like by the line, I think maybe I'm a fraud, suggests that maybe he did believe in himself.
To me,
Uh,
but to me, it suggests that he expected a different ending. And
right.
now that he's dying, he's like, oh well, I guess maybe I'm a fraud. I had it wrong.
Hmm.
Something didn't align.
But
But
even though
I do
he
think,
seemed to foresee his own death, I don't know.
well,
It's
but it could
weird.
be he thought it a different way or something, or
Yeah, yeah. It was
but
a pretty
or he
undignified death.
Yeah, so I think it was just about money. I think when Nora goes to see him and he's in that ratty hotel room and
Yeah,
he's got a mattress on the floor. I mean, that
yeah.
doesn't seem like a guy who really believes. I don't know. It seems weird. I don't know why there wouldn't be more. It's disarming that there's not more pomp and circumstance, and
Hmm.
it's not a super well decorated, and like
Right,
and he's got to anoint you with thing, whatever.
right,
It's like
right.
super bare bones. Um, so it's weird if he thought he was that powerful of a person, why would he be slumming it? You know.
Well, I guess I assume by that point, since he was on the run, he was just staying in seedy locations to avoid
mm.
detection, being captured, and stuff
Oh,
like
that's right.
that.
Because that's right. That's right.
I
He
mean, his
did have a
compound
compound.
was nicer
That's
than that
right.
place.
That's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about the timeline there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, we see him in a lot of very, very run down. He's like sleeping in what looks like I don't know, like the boiler room or something at some point in season one. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, but I agree that with a basic point that we don't. I don't think he remains kind of an enigmatic figure. I don't think we really understand his point of view. It seems like there's an aspect of him that is a con man, that is kind of just about self interest and tricking people into helping him. I think that's pretty hard to argue.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene with Kevin and other scenes with him suggests that there is something about him that really believes in what he can do.
Something about him that believes in himself?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, that could be delusion, though. It
Oh,
could
it could
be.
absolutely could be delusion, but I guess I'm saying something about him that's not 100% cynical, or you know what I mean, just like 100% like I know that I'm, like what John and Lori are doing. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like he didn't necessarily feel like that.
Yeah, that was actually an interesting thing that when they revealed that Laurie's on the computer upstairs, it did make me wonder about that before with how they were doing that kind of stuff. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you could just have a second person
Yeah,
on the
feeding
radio.
information into your ear.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
classic.
yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, I don't know. The Wayne thing.
It's a tough one. It's a tough
Yeah,
one. But
I think he was just a con man. I think he was delusional, and I think he thought he had powers. Um,
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's what I think.
It's
Yeah.
very plausible. I would definitely agree with that theory. But I'm still curious if there's if there's gonna be another thing with him, even if it's still, you know, he was just a con man.
Did Kevin shoot him in the hotel?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he's maybe one of Patty's bodyguards or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what my other notes I got. Do. Matt's gambling. Yeah.
Oh God. Did you notice the 23?
Yeah, 23. Yeah. So another kind of storytelling thing tool. I don't know. That happens is this technique. What I've dubbed the until I found a better term, belief intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So the point where a character is presented with like two options, similar to the shuffle, but not as many parts. So
Right.
like the example is where Matt tells a story about a boy with cancer. And that whole thing, so it's basically you're presented with something, and which direction you go will determine like your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens a lot on this show. Let's see, jumping to the fourth episode of season 1. So remember when Tommy and Christine are like on the run and they're at a hostel or something, and there's that naked crazy guy.
Yeah. I know what's inside you.
Yeah. So did she just tell him that she was pregnant and he's just repeating that back to her, or is he getting that information from a sixth sense or something?
I mean, I think she just told him. However, he did talk about they were all dressed in white and dead or whatever.
Yeah, you could walk among them or something.
Yeah, and that thing sort of comes true at the end. So then it's I mean, Christine didn't know about that in advance.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was weird.
So it almost seems like, I mean, that's building up the prophecy baby idea. And then they kind of blow that up. So I don't know what to make of that guy. It's a weird thing.
The weird thing about the prophecy baby it doesn't quite work, right? Because if she just told him she's pregnant, then there's no magic behind him knowing that, even though there's magic behind him guessing the future, right? So it's it kind of doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, it seems to me like, yeah, it's it's like, one of those things.
It's like he's not magical and he's magical.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, she just told him about that, so like that's not even a big deal. But he actually predicted the future accurately.
Yeah.
What?
So weird. And he has no pants on, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. Because he talked about being like in a dream, and I thought, a lot of times, that old cliche about dreaming you're in school or something with no pants on or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so anyway, rewatching season 1, I saw how they are slowly but surely building up to the whole thing that Guilty Remnants do at the end when they recreate the bodies of the departed.
Yeah.
So you see all this talk about the body double people. I forgot what it was called now. Love double? I don't know. Something it was called. The company's called. But so we see it. The bodies. I don't understand it. We'll talk about that in a second. I don't understand that scene, but the bodies that are on the highway. And then Nora meets the salesman for one of those things.
Yep. At the conference,
Yeah, exactly. And he even talks about using pictures to create them.
That was a clue.
So they're really just giving us everything we would need to guess that if we were somehow thinking about that.
Yep.
I didn't understand the whole sort of context there of the bodies being on the highway. Were they being shipped somewhere? Because I thought the idea is like the people order them for funerals and then you bury them in the ground. So why were there a truck full of those things? Shouldn't they have been? I just didn't understand like why they were there. And they're going to be delivered or something?
Yeah, I guess that would be my assumption. It's delivery.
They're delivering all these. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have to be delivered somehow, so yeah. I think that's what it is. Though, yeah. I don't think they really say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Directly.
No, they didn't say it, but I was just confused on why they were there.
Yeah, it's strange. It's definitely strange.
So next episode, episode 5, I made a note of how the FBI guy offers to kill the guilty remnants.
Oh yeah.
Like they do in season 3, episode 1.
Yep.
And let's see. 6.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say about that. Like, it's in a way, it was frustrating to me that they just short circuited that plot line completely. Mm-hmm. But it is consistent.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. The end of that whole thing with the guilty remnant lady, whose name I keep forgetting. But you know, when they go to the forensics processing lab or facility, you see that they just burn her body. They don't actually process it for forensics. So that case is done. They're not even trying to I thought that was an interesting detail that I did not catch before. That basically they're not gonna try to find the killer or anything.
They don't care at all. And by the way, I guess you haven't gotten to this reveal, but it turns out that the guilty remnant set up that whole thing.
Yeah. And you kind of see that. I think that's why Patty takes Lori out. Remember, when she takes her to the nice hotel and gives her breakfast all day, and I think that was because she was there. She helped kill that lady. And she was freaking out about it because there's actually, a couple times throughout the season, like when a character remembers something, to do that quick flash of little scenes. And they do that with her when she's at the diner, which means she was there. She helped do it. So that was interesting because I didn't know that was the context before.
And that's also a Lindelof thing where in the Matt centric episode there's these guys who, I mean, the reason he ends up in the hospital is there's these guys who are driving by these guilty remnant people and they throw rocks at him and they end up hitting Matt with one of the rocks. And it sets us up to think that, and it's true, that there are people who would want to take the guilty remnant in the woods and stone them to death. But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
It's yes, but
it's like this show is a thesis on not using evidence to produce what your action should be.
Right.
Because it's this is evidence of something that you should not connect to something else. It's damn it.
Right.
That's how our brains work. We're supposed to take in evidence and connect it to things.
Yeah.
And you're constantly saying if you do that, you will make a mistake.
Right. Yeah. That's
It's almost anti-science.
It is, yeah.
Like an anti-science show.
Yeah. Evidence will not lead you to the correct conclusion.
Yeah, wow. Evidence actually gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Should call Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and tell them this is an anti-science show. They need to protest.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. So, my note for episode 6 was just about the thing I mentioned a couple times where Nora's at the that talk where the speaker talks about the prophet dilemma. Let's see. Episode 7, we get the second blackout for Kevin with the dog.
Yeah.
And if I believe what happened was he had a dream, which it has to be a dream. But they didn't present it.
The dog in the mailbox.
The dog in the mailbox has to be a dream.
That's got to be a dream. That's too weird.
Bark, you've got mail.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God.
Or just say, you've got bark. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, you realize it's kind of a dream sequence. But then he wakes up, and he's been bitten by a dog. So I guess he went out and grabbed a dog somewhere.
Yeah, apparently.
All right, well, all right.
That was he does crazy shit when he goes in his fugue states, and that
Mm-hmm.
was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the crazy shit he gets into in those fugue
Yeah.
states. It's really interesting, like that whole idea. Like, I wonder if he's gonna have any more of those in season 3, because like the Kevin that exists in those fugue states is
Mm-hmm.
completely like so hard to relate to, because he just seems so different from how the character is when he's not in those
Yeah.
states. You know,
Well, that's why he's Dean's friend.
right.
Dean is like, hey, here's a guy I can relate to. When Kevin's in his fugue state.
I know. And there's this thing in season 1 that I think you haven't gotten to yet, but like, once Kevin goes in the fugue state and like drags Patty to that cabin,
Mm-hmm.
then he wakes up and there's this moment where Dean's like, all right, I don't know what you got to do. Go back and take a nap or something, but I want the other guy back.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
Like,
like,
and that's what's great is Dean knows, he
yep,
knows what's up.
he knows. Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
fine with it. He's
yeah.
fine that he's crazy and has split personalities.
It's
That doesn't
yeah.
get in the way of his fun. Well, it is now. Go get
Right.
the other Kevin.
Yeah. Just go get him. It's no big deal, I don't like this one. This one's kind of weak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other one really knew how to take charge, like, and get things done. That's what I'm all about. But yeah, it's crazy. I wonder what they're gonna say. I mean, it seems like since Kevin's specialness or strangeness or whatever is taking a central place in the story, I mean, I wonder what the deal is with his fugue states.
Yeah, that's a good point that it is Kevin's specialness because until this season 3 episode 1 and they make it clear that the focus is on Kevin being special. I think before you could just say, well, who knows if other people would have survived that poison, or
Right.
if the earthquake would have happened for
Yeah,
them and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But they are making an emphasis on his speciality.
Indeed. Yeah.
The other question from this, and this is as far as I got in my rewatch, was episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
But the National Geographic magazine.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God. I'm so confused by that.
So and like the dad says like this is your Kevin's invitation from the things in his head or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we invite you via this March 1970 issue.
What?
Mm-hmm.
That's why in that kind of annoying, totally missing the point sketch about David Lindelof that you can find on YouTube, they specifically bring up the National Geographic thing. Like, I got this National Geographic issue. What does it mean? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, because like I don't really, and he burned down the library, and then later when he escapes, he goes to the library again, presumably looking for that issue. And it's like, what's going on with the library, and what's going on with that issue of National Geographic? Like, why does it have to do with anything? It just seems like it's symbolic. But then but why? Why National Geographic? You know what I mean? I mean, why not just like a note or something? I don't understand. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll go back to that. I wonder if there's any. I remember in the Homeward Bound montage, I was kind of annoyed by it because it was like way too literal. But I remember when there's a line about magazines, and they cut to the National Geographic.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's going to be some kind of statement about that. If he catches up to his dad or something. You know what I mean? If they're going to go back to that, because I feel like there was like nothing about it in terms of even a theory about why it's that. I mean, he explained what it was, but it's like, but why would it be a National Geographic issue from the 70s? Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I was actually just looking online. There is somebody trying to make some sense out of this.
Of course.
Having to do with some image that's in the magazine of gazelles or something.
Okay.
I can't really tell what their point is. Yeah.
Well, that's the internet.
Apparently, in the magazine, there's something called the riddle of Minoans in there, and that has to do with something Christine may have said.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to read this Oh, apparently there's an article in the issue titled "The Spider That Lives Underwater," and this is saying Christine made a comment, a reference to a spider that lives underwater.
Okay.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't either, but okay.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. And then there's this thing about Cairo that's, I don't know. So apparently there's some connection.
Cairo does come up.
Yeah.
Cairo, let's say.
Cairo.
It's not the one you're thinking.
So I don't know. Maybe there's something under the surface, but yeah, it's interesting.
It is, yeah. I mean, that whole thing seems like it's the start of the larger, like, plot-driven side of the show. Like, you know, the thing with his dad and, like, trying to bring Kevin in early on and his, you know, rejecting the invitation. You know, it's sort of like the hero's journey, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he's, you know, on the verge, even though he probably wouldn't put it this way, of, you know, going for it, accepting and trying to pursue whatever weird destiny is supposedly waiting for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Is he still think there's more coming, or does he think everything's fine?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because what was really resolved, you know?
Yeah.
I guess he got rid of Patty.
He did get rid of Patty. That's true. That was good. She was pretty annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the fact that worked is like, but of course, it's easy to argue that, well, if it's in his head, of course it worked. It was like a psychological resolution. Like, all right, well,
yeah,
I can't exactly prove that's wrong.
Oh yeah, wow. Yeah, it's tough to figure out if that's supposed to be real or not. But I think it'll come back. I feel like we're not done with the hotel.
I definitely think we're not done with the hotel. I know you mentioned it wasn't in the previously on, but they explicitly show it and reference it in the episode. So, I mean, I think the door is wide open for some kind of future development of whatever the hotel is supposed to be.
You're telling me at this hotel there's vacancies.
Exactly.
And it's you.
Free HBO.
Free HBO and ice machine.
Great.
Get the ice machine.
Gotta have a fucking ice machine.
Yeah, it's not a hotel unless there's ice machines.
That's true.
You need ice. You
gotta have ice.
You know why you need ice? Because you're not at home.
Exactly.
If you're at home, you'd have ice.
You can't just get ice because you're at home.
So by law, we have to provide ice.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, that's all my notes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun rewatching this. Feels like the old days of Lost.
Yeah, definitely. This show has a lot in common with Lost. I mean, it's not quite as big or whatever. It's not quite as focused, I guess, on certain things, but it's definitely the closest thing to Lost that has come on since Lost.
Yeah,
I would say.
I'll buy that.
I mean, it has a lot to do with the fact that David Lindelof's working on the show.
That, I think, is a contribution.
But yeah, it's really providing something that, in my mind, and I like a lot of other shows, but I don't think any other show is providing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, real quick, that whole bagel incident, rewatching that was really funny.
Yeah.
Even though the bagels didn't depart, it actually was still very improbable that they would get
Hmm.
stuck like that,
Of course
and
it
and that
was.
and that all those shakes didn't make them fall out.
Of
Because
course.
it's funny when you see the shot of them in there on the little grill thing,
Hmm.
on the grate or whatever, their gravity's working. They're laying flat on this thing,
Yeah.
and then when they come back to that shot and they're not there, I mean, you're basically saying they floated. I mean, you're
Hmm.
saying that they somehow went up.
Hmm.
And unless that machine has a mechanism that's supposed to flip them or something, which
Hmm.
it doesn't. That's not a
No,
thing.
no, no.
Then there's no reason for those things to have levitated up into the
Yeah.
top of the damn thing. So
Levitating bagels.
it actually is really weird.
Yeah. While at the same time being
Yep,
concrete.
being evidence of the non-weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is classic Lindelof.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that moment was like it felt like it was telling me, you know, here's how here's how you should think about things happening on this show.
Hmm.
Like here's a kind of mission statement about how I'm gonna present mysteries.
Yeah.
Because here's a mystery that doesn't matter, but
Hmm.
it still shows how I think about these things.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I feel like that's the kind of scene you just don't get. You just don't get on a normal show.
Hmm.
I
And he
mean,
asked the mayor, he's like, did you take my bagel?"
yeah, the disappearing bagel mystery, and that's why I want to ask you about the shirts, because like the shirts is sort of like the next level of that.
See, I didn't get anything mysterious about the shirts,
Well,
but now
you
that you
should
keep
just wait.
saying it, I know. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, geez, the shirts.
You should just wait when you get to the shirt thing. Yeah. So next time we podcast, we should talk about the shirts because I think
Okay.
you'll get to them by then, and there's definitely a thing there, and I don't know what it is.
Yikes! All right. Got the shirts.
Yeah.
Something else I was gonna mention. What were we talking about before the shirts?
The bagels.
Bagels. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, that kind of thing actually does happen a lot in real life though, where some little thing that doesn't matter is just inexplicable. Like, okay, how did
Mm-hmm.
this thing get here? I didn't put this thing
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember where I put it and it wasn't here, or I
Right.
remember, in these, like, where did the socks go? You
Yeah.
know, I years ago I thought I was doing a good thing. I had all these guitar picks laying around, and I was at like Guitar
Mm-hmm.
Center, and I saw this little like pick holder. It's this little plastic thing where you can
Yeah.
like put all a group of picks into one little thing, and it has a little
Yeah.
dispenser, kind of like a Pez dispenser almost, where
Right.
you kind of can just slide a pick out when you need. I was like, this is great. I'll put all my picks in here. Great. Guess what? Soon after I did that, I lost it. Don't know where it went. It didn't ever leave my room, but somehow it was not in my room. And I was like, well, I guess whenever I move out of this place, I'll find it when I'm packing up. I moved out of that place, packed up, never found it.
Never found it.
That thing just, I have no explanation for where that thing is.
Wow.
No explanation. And then I was like, this is a bad idea. I put all my picks in one place, and now they're all gone.
And now they're all gone.
Yeah, now they're all gone.
Wow.
So the bagel thing's kind of, it's kind of an interesting example of how these kind of very mundane, improbable things happen, or unexplained things happen all the time, where it's just like, I don't know. Of course, socks in the dryer, right? I mean,
Right.
where do socks go?
Yeah.
I told you my theory about where socks go, right, in the dryer.
I don't remember. No.
Well, it's very scientific. See if you can follow it.
Okay.
The dryer creates static electricity,
Right.
which in turn creates micro wormholes. And
Oh God.
they're very small. They don't interact with normal matter very
Right.
often.
Right.
But when they do, it's very rare. But when they do, socks are the perfect shape
It's
to
usually
go
sock
into
because they're smaller.
because
And...
yep, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a whole dimension somewhere that's just
socks.
That's it's just socks there.
Wow.
All right. Anything else? What else we got?
I mean, I think that's it for now. Obviously, there's a lot more to come here, but you know, I think we've covered a lot of the big issues for this episode and for the thing up to here. But yeah, it's Leftovers is way better than I thought it would be when I first started watching it. So I'm just glad there's a show like this. It's too bad it's ending, though. I guess that means like it won't like start getting shitty before it ends. But I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do, because I really don't, except for a very broad outline, I really have no idea.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ride, I think. But yeah, we covered a lot. So yeah, we'll be back next time with the we'll be podcasting this whole season. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, like the old days.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, we'll see you.
All right. See you later.